Chapter 774. When Longchen heard Kang Dahai's words, he smiled and said, "Then you still dare to bring them to find me? Aren't you afraid of dying?" Kang Dahai was very friendly. His bean-sized eyes also revealed a bit of light. He stared at Longchen and said, "I feel that Brother Longchen is not an ordinary person. This time, you will definitely achieve great things. It is worth taking some risks." Longchen became more and more curious about Kang Dahai. This person looked fat and crude, but his mind was extremely meticulous. Otherwise, he would not be the leader of these 20 people. Longchen said again, "Then how do you know that I am not an ordinary person? My eyes can see far, and I can see many people. Therefore, I know many things." As the two talked, they had already walked to a village at the foot of the mountain. In the village, smoke rose in spirals. It was time to cook. There were not many people in this village. At a glance, they had already scanned 70 to 80% of the village. There were only a dozen households in total. When Longchen's group walked over, they were seen by a few burly men who were cleaning the prey. They were very hospitable. From afar, they waved to Longchen's group and said, "Are you cultivators from the North Foot territory?" Longchen's group nodded. Kang Dahai had a bashful smile on his face and asked, "How do you know that we are cultivators from the North Foot territory? Did someone else come here?" The sturdy old man laughed and replied, "A few days ago, there were 2 groups of cultivators from the North Foot territory. They also came here to ask many things." Before Kang Dahai could speak, 2 people behind him could not help but ask, "What did they ask? Could you tell us more about it?" The old man smiled and nodded. He carried the prey on his shoulder and said to the group, "Everyone, come in and have a drink. We'll talk about it in detail. It's rare for us to have guests in this mountain." They entered one after another, obviously wanting to hear what the old man had to say. However, Kang Dahai directly stopped them and said, "Since others have already inquired about it, we should go elsewhere to ask." The people behind him were all stunned, but they said, "As long as we can get the news, we might be able to get there first." Kang Dahai shook his head and said, "I just saw a flare in the distance. The information we are looking for should be there, not here." After saying that, Kang Dahai led the group into the distance. The few of them hesitated, but in the end, they followed behind him. The few of them had only walked a few dozen meters before they disappeared into the mountain stream. Longchen looked at Kang Dahai with admiration in his eyes. Before he had even entered the village, the Emperor Lord's remnant soul had already warned him that the village was filled with ghosts, and they were definitely not good people. Even if the fat man had not warned them, Longchen would have stopped them from entering the village at the last moment. Not long after they left, a series of squeals that sounded like pigs being slaughtered came from behind them. The owner behind Kang Dahai turned around and quickly flew into the air. He looked in the direction of the sound and found that the village was still the same village, but the bloodstains on the door had not disappeared. This made everyone look at Kang Dahai in a new light. Since there are already ghosts here, it means that the Source Soul has turned into a spiritual being that can move, and the Source Soul can only move in a place with a wide water source for a short period of time. A thin young man behind Kang Dahai said frankly. Longchen and the others nodded. They had already memorized the knowledge of Source Souls in the Warring States period. "If that's the case, let's hurry to the west. When I was flying, I saw 5 big lakes there." Longchen did not say much from the beginning to the end, and followed behind the group. In fact, no one took Longchen seriously. After all, his cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Emperor realm in their eyes. The group continued to move forward, but their speed was getting slower and slower. After just crossing 2 mountains, they felt as if they had arrived at another mountain range. It was a flat mountain range, but at this moment, there were powerful demonic beasts scurrying out from time to time. Under the reminder of the Emperor Lord's remnant soul, Longchen understood that these demonic beasts were being controlled by someone. It was a kind of beast taming technique. "Longchen, hurry up. Don't be a burden." A few 6th-level emperors frowned and shouted at Longchen. The group advanced for 1,000 meters, and Longchen was at the back. This made them very unhappy. Some of them did not understand why Kang Dahai wanted to recruit Long Chen into the group. Long Chen was a third-level Emperor Realm cultivator, and in their eyes, they could do without him. Long Chen nodded, and suddenly dashed to the left. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared into the forest. This caused the crowd to curse. Did he run away? I told you this guy is a piece of trash. How did a third-level Emperor Realm cultivator pass the test? Ignore him. Let's hurry up and get to the lake. The group continued to fight. After a while, they realized that the demonic beasts around them had all dispersed. Some even fell to the ground and could not get up. When they rushed out of the mountain range and reached the lake, Long Chen was already standing there. But now, they could not be bothered with Long Chen. Their gazes were all attracted by a lotus flower in the middle of the lake. To be precise, it was a lotus candlelight. This candlelight slowly rose from the bottom of the lake. It was not a man-made artifact, but a natural object. When Kang Dahai saw this, his eyes narrowed. He said in a low voice, "Water Moon Lotus Fire." Everyone was very excited when they heard this. The Water Moon Lotus Fire was a treasure. Although it could not increase one's cultivation, it was a natural artifact. When they waved it, they could control the fire and water origins of heaven and earth. Its power was unparalleled, and it could increase their combat power by at least 30%. At this moment, 5 Water Moon Lotus Fires were rising from the 5 lakes. Are you all still watching from the side? If you don't come out now, this Lotus Fire will be gone. Long Chen's voice rang out. Kang Dahai and the others looked at each other, but did not find anything unusual. But in the next moment, figures rushed out from the edge of the lake. There were actually 5 groups of people. Cultivators in the 9 Treasures realm. They actually resisted the temptation to seize these 5 lotus fires and waited for us to come. Kang Dahai's face was slightly green. Now, they were in a dilemma. The 5 groups of people blocked their escape in an instant. One of them even looked directly at Long Chen. You just killed 2 of my beast tamers in an instant. Why did you come even though you knew there was an ambush here? This person's voice was cold, but also very puzzled. Long Chen looked at these 5 groups of people. He knew that they were not using these 5 lotus fires as a lure. They were waiting for the lotus fires to completely hatch. Chapter 775. For the 5 lotus fires? Long Chen's words shocked everyone. The people behind Kang Dahai looked at each other. Soon after, they were filled with rage. If Long Chen knew there was an ambush here, he should have told them to leave. Now that they were up against 5 teams, leaving was easier said than done, not to mention the 5 lotus fires. The leader of the 5 groups stared at Long Chen and said, "You just killed 2 beast men from the Imperial Beast clan." However, they were only at the 4th level of the Imperial Beast clan. They weren't good at fighting. I really want to know where a 3rd-level Great Emperor like you gets your confidence from. Long Chen didn't reply. Instead, he had already broken through the air and charged toward the person who had spoken. Is this Long Chen crazy? He's only a 3rd-level Great Emperor, how dare he attack a peak Great Emperor? The people behind Kang Dahai were shocked. But now that the arrow was on the bow, they had no choice but to fire. Everyone clashed. There were more than 50 people in the 5 teams. They had the absolute advantage in numbers. In the blink of an eye, Kang Dahai and the others were at a disadvantage. If this continued, they would probably be completely annihilated in less than an hour. However, when a loud explosion rang out in the distance, as well as cries of terror, everyone subconsciously stopped their attacks. Long Chen was like a god of war. Even the late-stage Great Emperors couldn't fight him head-on. He's not a 3rd-level Great Emperor. He's at least a late-stage Great Emperor. He's so strong. He must be from the Divine Clan. Why would someone like him get involved in this mess? The 9 Treasure Realm late-stage martial emperors retreated as they cried out in shock. They couldn't even suppress Long Chen. 3 of the late-stage Great Emperors looked at each other, then dove into the water and disappeared. When Kang Dahai and the others came to their senses, their faces were filled with shock. They stared at Long Chen in disbelief. There were already 10 people lying in front of Long Chen. There were even late-stage great emperors among them. Everyone was shocked, but Long Chen had already flown away. He had no intention of chasing after the others. His feet were like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. The divine beast took away all 5 lotus flames. Then, he shouted to the crowd, "Don't fight. Leave quickly." When Kang Dahai and the others saw that Long Chen had succeeded, they immediately understood and hurriedly retreated. After Long Chen and the others left, figures appeared one after another in the dark areas of the nearby mountain range. Their faces were filled with shock. 2 of them said, "Looks like this mission is going to be troublesome. Even though he's only a 3rd-level martial emperor, I'm afraid he's no weaker than a god-race great perfection martial emperor. Although it's a little troublesome, it's not impossible. We're not the only group chasing after him. If we kill him, our path to becoming celestial emperors will be smooth sailing." Long Chen and the others left. This time, only one person had died in the fight for the Lotus Fire. With such a loss, they had obtained 5 Lotus Fires, which made everyone extremely excited. The 5 Lotus Fires were all in Long Chen's hands, and no one dared to ask for them. After traveling for a few dozen kilometers, Long Chen was the first to stop. He took out all 5 Lotus Fires, handed over 3, and kept the last one for himself. He said in a low voice, "Many factions have gathered here. We still have to help each other. Let's split the items we find here equally." Long Chen's words immediately won everyone's favor. Kang Dahai also looked at the Lotus Fire in his hand and nodded. Some of them didn't even consider obtaining an origin soul as part of their plan. Because of the appearance of an origin soul, this place had already become a land of fortune. To them, there was something to gain. They didn't have to search for an origin soul. However, only Long Chen knew. That day, Zhan Tianquang had appeared personally to send them here. It wasn't without reason. Instead, he had used this opportunity to leave a mark on each of them. If someone really obtained an origin soul, Emperor Zhan Tianquang would personally take them away. Of course. If they left this area without permission, Long Chen didn't know whether they would be killed by some great method. "Brother Long Chen, I spoke rudely just now. I hope you don't take it to heart." The man who was very unhappy with Long Chen at the beginning had a remorseful look on his face. He didn't expect Long Chen to have hidden his cultivations so deeply, and now he was even willing to share the 4 Lotus Fires equally with them. "It's fine. This matter isn't your fault. The journey to obtain an origin soul has just begun. Everyone, don't hold grudges." Everyone held the 5 Lotus Fires in their hands, and their faces were full of gratitude towards Long Chen. Long Chen and Kang Dahai had already become the backbone in everyone's eyes. Everyone couldn't help but respect Long Chen a little more. In the next few days, everyone continued to go deeper into the mountain range. Although they were very familiar with origin souls, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to find an origin soul that could transform in this vast mountain range. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed. Long Chen and the others woke up. Under Kang Dahai's lead, there were only a few battles. Now, in front of them was a muddy land. The few of them scattered around the muddy swamp, and after a while, they gathered at the center where Long Chen was. Kang Dahai shook his head first and said, "This is already the 6th water source we found, and we still haven't found any clues. Brother Kang, why are you distressed?" "Although we haven't found any clues about the origin soul, this place is really rich. Just in these 10 days, we've obtained at least 100 kinds of 3-flower divine herbs." Everyone seemed to be in a good mood. In the ancient sacred divine world, alchemists were a very noble profession. They were divided into 9 grades, also known as the 9 flowers. Long Chen learned from the Emperor Lord's remnant soul. Under normal circumstances, cultivators would directly choose to consume divine herbs. In the entire ancient sacred divine world, only those who could refine the 4-flower divine herbs could be called alchemists. Long Chen looked at the divine herbs in everyone's hands. After a moment of silence, he said, "Perhaps this proves that we've found the right place. perhaps this place is rich because of the origin soul. Everyone wanted to say something, but Kang Dahai's expression changed. He suddenly threw a punch at Long Chen. Long Chen dodged almost instinctively, and the aura around him grew even stronger. Shoo shoo shoo. Before Long Chen could say anything, dozens of arrows pierced through the air behind him and landed where he had just been standing. As the arrows fell, bursts of black flames spread out in all directions. Crackle crackle. The ground around them began to corrode at a speed visible to the naked eye. A mid-stage Soul Emperor who was close to Long Chen did not react in time and was burned to ashes by the black flames. Chapter 776. Each of the arrows had the power to kill a late-stage Emperor. The people around Long Chen wore grave expressions when they saw the black flames corroding the ground and emitting ear-piercing noises. It's the North Foot Territory's Inkbao celestial race. Kang Dahai's fat body shrunk back subconsciously as his voice was filled with fear. Hiss. The moment these words were spoken, the hearts of the other people beside Long Chen involuntarily trembled as they violently inhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Why would someone from this race be here? Long Chen frowned as he was puzzled. This person's target was obviously him. However, such a race shouldn't have appeared in the land of Soul Source. After all, most of the people recruited by the Imperial Emperors came from the land of the Lost People. Within the North Foot Territory, there were already more than 10 Imperial Emperors participating in the battle. However, the Inkbao celestial race was a direct subordinate of the Imperial Emperors. How could Imperial Emperor Mo Gong allow his own race to participate in the battle for the Soul Source? Inkbao celestial race. Long Chen wasn't unfamiliar with this name. He had heard of it many times in the Warring States period. Even Zhang Lanyue had personally mentioned this race. Half a year ago, the Imperial Emperor of this race had shot 10 arrows from 100 million miles away, severely injuring 3 Imperial Emperors of the Zhanghuang territory. These 10 arrows forced the 3 Imperial Emperors to retreat and killed almost 10,000 Imperial Emperors. The Inkbao celestial race was in the limelight. In the entire North Foot territory, everyone below the Imperial Emperors knew about the Inkbao celestial race. Let's retreat. The Inkbao celestial race specializes in long-range attacks. No one can withstand a single arrow. The middle-aged man to the right of Long Chen was sweating profusely. Everyone slowly retreated. Everyone was inexplicably nervous. Long Chen's face was gloomy. He couldn't see any traces of the Inkbao celestial race at all. The Imperial Emperor's remnant soul was sharp and could see through many things. However, the person who shot the arrows was too far away. The Imperial Emperor's remnant soul said to Long Chen in a deep voice, "These black arrows aren't poisoned. They're fake arrows formed by the soul. Try to avoid them. Otherwise, even if you don't die, it'll be troublesome." Shio shio. Just as the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul landed, another 3 arrows streaked across the sky in 3 crisscrossing arcs, heading straight for Long Chen and the others. Kang Dahai's eyes flickered with divine light. Relying on this pair of eyes, he immediately captured the direction of the arrow. The arrow flew over the top of the mountain and into the low-lying area of the swamp. Every arrow was ridiculously fast, leaving behind a streak of black light. Bang, bang, bang. Several people were frantically trying to block the arrows. Long Chen immediately used his soul skill and struck the arrows at an extremely fast speed. Poochie. Save me. The eyes of the person beside Long Chen were filled with fear, but he saw that an arrow had already pierced his chest. When Long Chen looked sideways, he found that this person's soul had already dissipated, and his body was burning with black flames from inside out. For a moment, he couldn't be more dead. Seeing this, Long Chen's eyes flashed with killing intent, and his heart was filled with anger. He looked at the black ethereal fire lingering on his arm and felt the corrosive intent of the soul. The brilliance above the dragon palace flickered, dispersing the ethereal fire at a speed visible to the naked eye. Long Chen leaped out of the square formation of several people and said in a low voice, "Kang Dahai, take them away. This person's target is me." After saying this, Before the others could answer, Longchen had already broken through the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Streaks of black arrows appeared again, but this time they flew straight in the direction where Longchen disappeared. Kang Dahai and the others were livid. They looked at each other and had no choice but to fly away. Just as Longchen said, these arrows didn't have the intention to pay attention to Kang Dahai and the others. They seemed to have grown eyes and were heading straight for Longchen. On top of an extremely tall mountain tens of thousands of miles away from Longchen and the others, a middle-aged man was constantly shooting arrows with his bow. There was nothing on the longbow at first, but once the bow was drawn, a stream of black fire would break through the sky. After waiting for so many days, I didn't expect that I still haven't won. However, this group of people is really weak. After a long while, the man snorted coldly and stopped shooting the longbow in his hand. The black light in his eyes also completely dissipated. These days, he had been paying attention to Longchen, in order to kill him with one shot. Longchen and the others went deep into the low-lying swamp, which was the best time. However, Kang Dahai was the first to discover the trace of the arrow. I must get this person's head. Otherwise, I won't have any hope of stepping into the Imperial Emperor realm in this life. The man snorted coldly and put away the black-patterned silver bone longbow in his hand. Even if this arrow can't take his life, it will definitely make him unable to fight anymore. After saying this, on the other side, Longchen sank into the mud of the swamp, and in the blink of an eye, he had already rushed out several miles. There was a pitch-black arrow stuck in his shoulder. If one looked carefully, one would find that the arrow was actually formed by a hollow soul. Under the black fire, there were inscriptions carved on the hollow soul. The hollow soul arrow's brilliance kept flickering. The black fire on it seemed like it would spread out from Longchen's shoulder at any time and swallow him whole. Longchen lay on the ground and did not move at all. Demonic aura rose and fell from his body one after another, as if he was enduring great pain. After a while, Longchen jumped up. However, he did not pull out the arrow and rushed into the distance. His speed was not fast, as if he was seriously injured. However, if anyone could see his eyes, they would be able to see the coldness in them. Longchen ran at a moderate speed towards a remote place in the mountain range, as if he was looking for a safe place to stay. At sunset, Longchen stopped. A small team of 7 people stopped Longchen directly. They stared at Longchen, their eyes full of ridicule. During this period, they had been paying attention to Longchen's movements. However, Longchen's strong combat power made them tremble in fear. The previous team was almost completely wiped out. That day, they were very glad that they did not make a move, but chose to observe. The Black Bow Celestial clan's attack finally gave them an opportunity. You have been waiting for us for a long time. We have used a lot of energy to hide your tracks. The leader of the young men pulled out a few iron nails from between his eyebrows, his face showing some pain. The others did the same. Longchen stared at them, as if he was enduring great pain. He took a few steps back, revealing a fearful look, and said in a deep voice, "You are also people from the Warring States period. Why do you want to kill me?" The young man could not help but shake his head and laugh. However, his eyes swept across Longchen unscrupulously and said, "You have no idea how much your life is worth now. Otherwise, I would not use such a precious item like the soul concealment nail on you." After the young man finished speaking, a ray of divine light condensed in his hand. His face was full of killing intent. Chapter 777. The mud on Longchen's body had dried up, and he was in a sorry state. His right arm was constantly emitting black flames, and the arrow seemed to be constantly draining the power of his spirit. On his right, a group of people broke through the ground. There were 10 people in total. When the 10 people appeared, they shook off the mud on their bodies, and their dirty clothes were somewhat similar to Longchen's. However, their eyes were also full of greed as they stared at Longchen. The young man who was about to kill Longchen stopped the divine light in his hand, and gloomily stared at the leading woman. The woman's voice was indifferent, but her appearance made everyone shudder. Her head was extremely thin, as if it had been stretched half from top to bottom, causing her facial features to be vertical. However, her body was curvaceous, and the contrast was great. We've been watching Longchen for a few days now. Do you think you should take his life, or should I? The woman grinned. Her thin face had such a ferocious smile, and even Longchen couldn't help but frown. The young man's body glowed with divine light, and his eyes were fixed on Longchen, as if he was a hunting dog that had seen a piece of fat meat after days of starvation. However, when he turned to look at the woman, his face was ashen as he said, "Of course you should take it, of course you should take it. How would I dare to compete with the Ghost Goddess clan?" The Ghost Goddess clan was also from the Warring States period. Not only did he recognize her, but Longchen also remembered her appearance. The Ghost Goddess clan was a declining god clan, and their god origin was thin. However, this person's strength was still far beyond ordinary people, and it was said that she was quite famous in the Warring States period. Her appearance was indeed imprinted in one's mind. Then I'll take this person's soul to claim credit. The Ghost Goddess clan member chuckled, and a 2-meter-long demonic trident appeared in her hand. The demonic trident pierced through the air, and directly shot towards Longchen's head, and the divine light on it was like a tide. This person had reached the peak of the Emperor realm. This move clearly meant that she wanted to directly destroy Longchen. Chi! A deafening shout rang out. Everyone instinctively covered their bodies with divine light. Just as the ghost fork was about to fall, a series of ripples broke through the air, and wherever it passed, the sound waves would scatter and turn into a rain of swords. Rumble! The ghost fork was directly cut into hundreds of pieces. This person's life will be taken by the 9 Treasures Realm Huanyao Divine Clan. His voice fell. 3 bird beasts in the sky suddenly blossomed with divine splendor and descended in front of Longchen. As the 3 bird beasts got closer and closer, they gradually transformed into human forms. It was extremely strange. In the blink of an eye, there were already 3 groups of people gathered within 10,000 meters of Longchen. Longchen sat on the ground weakly, shaking his head as he looked at them. He murmured, "It's a pity that I, Longchen, only have 1 life. Otherwise, all of you can go and receive your rewards together." The 3 groups of people looked at each other. The Ghost Lady Divine Clan and the middle-aged man from the beginning did not dare to move. The leader of the 3 Huanyao Divine Clan members, a man with flaming feathers, snorted coldly, "Even if you have 10 more lives, they will all belong to the Huanyao Divine Clan today." The Huanyao Divine Clan was a 9 Treasures Realm god clan. Longchen did not know their origins. Everyone could feel the strong aura of the god's clan from him. Even though they were all at the peak of the Immortal Emperor realm, they were all intimidated by his aura. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul's voice rang in Longchen's mind. He said somewhat mockingly, "A single arrow wound attracted so many people to kill you. If you run for a few more days, I'm afraid you will really die here today." Longchen sneered in his mind. He naturally knew why these people wanted to kill him. But he really did not expect War Sunstar's father to be so influential. War Sunstar's father, War Sunstar's surname was Zhan, but he was not a member of the blood-soaked Divine Clan. In fact, the 10 strongest great emperors under Imperial Lord Zhan Kuang all had the surname Zhan. Zhan Sun, one of the 10 great emperors under Imperial Lord Zhan Kuang, was actually able to mobilize 2 great emperors to attack him at the same time. Longchen thought and said to the Emperor Lord's remnant soul, "If Master's technique is correct, I also want to run for another 10 miles. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul snorted coldly, "If you don't want to live anymore, you can run for another 10,000 miles. If your guess is wrong, you will still be in great danger. After all, this technique can only be used at close range, and only for 3 breaths. This way, it will not affect you at all." Longchen glanced at the steep boulders and dense leaves in all directions from the corner of his eyes. He said indifferently, "Don't worry, Master, I have some confidence in this matter." The 3 groups were actually in a stalemate. The 3 Huanyao Divine Clan members were extraordinary, but now, the Ghost Lady Divine Clan member was actually leaning towards the other group. She actually wanted to fight as an equal. However, just as the 2 groups were in a stalemate, Longchen suddenly spoke. He stared at the two groups and shook his head with a smile. "All right, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to make a move. It seems like you don't have the ability to take my life." Whoosh! 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 As soon as Longchen finished speaking, a series of pitch-black arrows shot towards them. Wherever the arrows passed, the grass and trees were crushed into powder, and the mountains were set ablaze with monstrous black flames. Poochie! Poochie! The sound of sharp objects piercing into flesh rang in everyone's ears. This sound was very strange, as if someone had taken a knife and directly slit their cheeks. However, in the blink of an eye, the expressions of the three groups changed drastically. They subconsciously looked to the sides and saw that other than the Huanyao Divine Clan, only the leader of the other two groups was left. "Only I can take this person's life," a man's voice converged into a line and sounded. Everyone looked over and could only see a black dot standing on the highest mountain peak in the distance. At this distance and height, they couldn't see the person's full appearance, but they could see the longbow in his hand. Whether it was the three Huanyao Divine Clan members or the ghost lady and the young man, they all slowly retreated. All of them were drenched in cold sweat. Crack! 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 As they retreated, Longchen slowly stood up with a playful look in his eyes. He shook his head and said, "The person I've been waiting for is here, but you still haven't found out who should kill me." The three groups froze. No one expected Longchen to stand up at this time. The weakness he had before seemed to have been swept away, and the arrow was also shaken out of his body. However, the black flames lingering around it were not something that could be eliminated in a short time. "Are you faking it? You're playing with your life. You lured us out, but we're all going to die here," the Ghost Lady Divine Clan member screamed. Chapter 778. The two huge totem pillars instantly merged, as if two demon gods bound by countless chains had appeared in front of everyone. Regardless of whether it was the booby god race or the other two, all of them felt their cultivation stagnate. On the ground beneath their feet, balls of black aura turned into ghost hands that grabbed onto their feet tightly. Their expressions changed drastically, and the few who were originally at the peak of the Emperor realm exclaimed in shock, "Visualization technique, what kind of god race are you? My cultivation is dropping." Crackle crackle. However, just as they finished speaking, they saw Longchen rushing over. Rays of divine light seemed to want to leave their bodies, but they were suppressed by the totem pillars in front of them. They were too close to Longchen. Bang bang bang. Longchen's figure was like lightning, and in the blink of an eye, he destroyed the bodies of three peak Emperor realm experts, including those from the ghost goddess race. In 3 breaths, the 3 gods were left with nothing but their souls. Poochie. After 3 breaths, the power of the totem pillars collapsed. Scram, or your souls will be destroyed. Longchen did not destroy their souls, and with a cold shout, he leaped towards the highest mountain in the distance. The only young man who still had his body intact was already drenched in cold sweat, and he was the first to flee. The woman from the Booby Bird God clan and the woman from the Ghost Goddess clan looked at each other, and their faces were filled with shock. If Longchen used 3 more breaths of time, even their god residences would vanish. Visualization technique. At this moment, they were so shocked that they could not speak. Such a terrifying visualization technique, it was rare for many Emperor Realm experts to see it. That Zhan Sun actually said that this person came from the abandoned land and had no foundation. This is simply sending us to our deaths. Not only does this person have an extremely high concealment technique, he also has a terrifying visualization technique. If today's target was not us, the consequences would be unimaginable. The souls of the 3 of them retreated rapidly. They felt both fear and a sense of relief as if they had survived a hopeless situation. However, they could not help but look towards Longchen. At this moment, Longchen was thinking about the last person from the Black Bao clan to arrive. Longchen's target, from the beginning to the end, was this person. Everyone knew that the Black Bao clan was a big clan in the 9 Treasures realm, and this person's cultivation was at the peak of the Emperor realm. Did Longchen really have the confidence to take him down? The battle power of such a big clan was not something they could compare to. Just now, those arrows had almost killed all the people around them. In the next moment, they were completely stunned by the scene in front of them, and even their original speed of escape slowed down a bit. The Ink Bao clan member actually flew away, and as he fled, he shot at Longchen with his bow drawn. Arrows fell like rain. Although the momentum was shocking, they could not hurt Longchen at all. Battle techniques. This person is using legacy battle techniques. Stop watching and run. Although the two of them did not know why the Black Bao clan kept retreating, they did not have the courage to continue prying. In the blink of an eye, they had already disappeared into the forest. On the other side, Longchen looked at the people from the Black Bao clan fleeing, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. He was more and more certain that this person from the Black Bao clan was almost invincible in long-range attacks, but in reality, once he got close, his attack power was very limited. When Longchen was hit by an arrow, he immediately fled, and then deliberately found this place. This place was surrounded by mountains, and the terrain was extremely sunken. If he wanted to attack from a distance, he could only attack from a mountain peak 10,000 meters away. However, at such a distance, this person's arrows not only did not become stronger, but also weakened. Otherwise, the people who died would not only be those who followed the Booby clan. This person has already used the power of a god to form an arrow with special inscriptions, and it is extremely terrifying, but this arrow needs time to activate the inscriptions to accumulate power, otherwise its power will sharply decrease. I'm afraid this is one of the reasons why Monarch Black Bao became famous from a battle millions of miles away. Longchen's arms rose with a battle technique, and the black arrows in front of him were constantly smashed down. These arrows looked like a torrential downpour, but their attack power could not be mentioned in the same breath as the sword that injured him previously. That arrow, even though his body was guarded by the Dragon Palace, he still felt a bone-scorching pain, as if the god in his body was about to be corroded. If he did not have the Primal Chaos Golden Codex and other items to suppress his divine soul, just that arrow a few days ago would be enough to seriously injure him. Longchen's speed became faster and faster, and he could not help but exclaim in admiration that the movement technique of the Black Bao clan in front of him was also not bad, and was only slightly inferior to his. Longchen's movement technique was imparted by Shu San, and it came from the Imperial Academy. Even though it wasn't a movement technique that was specially used for pursuit, its speed was extremely terrifying. Otherwise, Sword 13 wouldn't have relied on such a movement technique to deal with Tao Jiao outside the abandoned land for a few months. Longchen exclaimed in admiration, but he did not know that Mo Manua's entire face was ashen. Now, he no longer dared to continue shooting Longchen with his bow. These arrows could not stop Longchen's footsteps at all, and instead, they slowed him down. Damn it, that Zhan Sun's information is all wrong. How is this person from the abandoned land? He's definitely a Wandering Earth origin god clan. Soul skill battle technique, visualization technique, and a divine ability comparable to my Mo clan's arrow defense technique. Earth origin god clan. Just thinking about these few words made Mo Manua's scalp go numb, and she had already cursed Zhan Sun's 18 generations of ancestors in her heart. Within the Northfoot territory, 70 to 80% of the god clans were from the Deviant God clan, and as for the Earth Origin God clan, most of them had venerable emperors. The only known god clans in the ancient sacred divine world were the Deviant God clan, the Earth Origin God clan, and the Heaven Origin God clan. Among them, the Heaven Origin God clan was the most terrifying. They were a god clan that was born in the 9 heavens when the ancient sacred divine world transformed into a world, and their bloodline would not fade even after 1,000,000 years. It was rumored that among the god emperors in the ancient sacred divine world, at least 5 were from the Heaven Origin God clan. The Earth Origin God clan was similar to the Heaven Origin God clan, but their origin was not as strong as the Heaven Origin God clan. As for the Deviant God clan, their bloodline was not pure, and they were the descendants of the various god clans. Their origin had long been diluted. For example, the Bloodbath God clan that Zhan Lanua belonged to was a type of Deviant God clan, and their bloodline was already very weak. However, Longchen heard from the ancient sacred emperor that there was another god clan that was born from chaos, and they were also known as the primal chaos god clan. The distance between Longchen and Mo Manua was getting closer and closer, but his speed was still faster than Mo Manua's. The two of them had been chasing each other for a total of 5 days. Chapter 779. In these 5 days, Longchen did not let go of the ink bow. He was also shocked by the item in this person's hands. If not for the Emperor Lord's remnant soul locking onto this person, Longchen would have lost him even if his movement technique was slightly better. In these few days, this person had used no less than 3 secret techniques and more than 10 illusion arrays to escape. Mo Manua was begging for mercy now, but Longchen did not seem to have any intention of stopping. If he let this person go, there would be an arrow that could severely injure him at any time. Mo Manua from the Inkbow celestial race, why is he here? Who dares to chase after him? A group of more than 10 people looked at Longchen and Mo Manua from afar. The leader, Yen Chong, was puzzled. This person was also in the 9 treasures realm and could recognize Mo Manua at a glance. When the people behind him heard this, they looked at each other and followed his gaze towards Mo Manua. All of them had strange expressions on their faces. Upon hearing this, Mo Manua also saw these people from afar. His face was filled with joy and he shouted, "Everyone, help me stop this person. When I return to the Mo family, I will reward you greatly." The dozen or so people looked at each other when they heard this, but all of them began to hesitate. Mo Manua was being chased even with his cultivation. How would they dare to act rashly? Before they could agree, Mo Manua had already dashed towards them. Seeing this, the group of people gritted their teeth and said, "Young Master Mo, remember what you said today. We will help you stop him for a moment." Mo Manua had just passed by when the group of people blocked his path. Longchen saw this and snorted coldly. The power of his battle technique was unleashed to the maximum. The 3 people in front of him were sent flying 100 meters. Whoever dares to attack, kill. Longchen slowed down slightly, but Mo Manua was already a few 100 meters away from him. These people were not from the celestial race and were only in the advanced stage of the Emperor realm. If not for the fact that Longchen did not want to waste time, he could have killed them all in less than 10 breaths. More than a dozen people were aghast as they hurriedly retreated. Seeing that Longchen was chasing after Mo again, one of the leaders shouted, "Brother, why do you have to go against young Master Mo when you have such combat power?" Although Mo Manua doesn't have a high status in the family, he is still the young master of the Mo family. Longchen's footsteps paused when he heard this, and he frowned. The eldest young master of the Black Bow celestial race. Longchen felt extremely unlucky. Why would a person of such status come to the land of source spirits? Since he was the eldest young master of the Black Gong celestial race, he did not lack any cultivation resources. Even if he wanted to be crowned, his father, the Black Gong celestial emperor, would do it. For such a person to actually chase after him in the land of origin souls, it was truly inconceivable. It was no wonder that the chase between the two of them had attracted the attention of so many people over the past few days, and some even made a move like just now. So Mo Manua actually had such an identity. The sun is setting. Mo Manua's heart turned cold. The distance between her and Longchen was less than 10 meters. Longchen's terrifying aura made her tremble in fear. The Black Gong celestial race was famous in the 9 treasures realm mainly because of their uniqueness. Their archery skills were superb, and they were almost invincible from a long distance. They rarely met opponents of the same level, and coupled with their movement techniques, they were like a tiger that had grown wings. But today, he was defeated. Longchen would not let him go. While he was afraid of Longchen was also afraid of the sword in his hand. Not running anymore? Longchen smirked as he punched the person into the ground. Mo Manua did not even dodge, and took Longchen's punch directly. Rumble. Mo Manua flipped over and crawled up from the ruins. She was panting heavily, and her eyes were already red. This is the black silver bone bow, covered in black lines and silver bones. It is one of the best weapons in the Mo family. I will give it to you. This is my storage ring. There are many origin stones, Emperor origin energy, and 2 flower elixir pills inside. This is the clue about the source spirit that I have obtained. I will give it to you too. And I will give you all the information about the 7 or 8 lands of fortune that were created because of the source spirit. As long as you don't kill me. Mo Manua stared at Longchen from bottom to top, and started begging for mercy without panting. Longchen frowned, but he did not immediately attack to kill this person. His words were also very tempting. Among them, the clues about the source spirit and the lands of fortune that were created by the source spirit were the most important. Moreover, Mo Manua was already a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. The 2 of them were less than 10 meters apart, and Longchen could kill her in a breath's time. Especially after she threw the bow in front of Longchen, although she was still in the great circle of the Emperor realm, her aura was weakened by at least 30%. With this level of cultivation, he was even slightly inferior to the Booby clan from before. I will ask and you will answer. If you lie, this will be your burial ground. Longchen snorted coldly. Mo Manua unexpectedly shook her head and said in a low voice, if I tell you, won't I die even faster? Longchen punched through the air and shattered half of Mo Manua's body. He said coldly, at least you will have a chance to live. I will ask and you will answer. Otherwise, die. Are you the eldest young master of the Mo family? Yes. Did you get news about me from Zhan Xingzi's father? Yes, if I kill you, he will pave the way for me to be crowned. Mo Manua's words made Longchen frown. The eldest young master of the Mo family actually wanted someone to crown him and even risked his life to come to the source spirit? If it weren't for the fact that the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul had exposed this person, Longchen wouldn't have believed such words. Then, Mo Manua hurriedly explained, afraid that Longchen would misunderstand. After a while, Longchen came to a realization and looked at Mo Manua pitifully. He looked at the black-silver bone bow on the ground and said, with this weapon in your Mo family's attack style, its power will be much more than what you used previously. Without this bow, you will not be able to threaten me. Mo Manua's eyes lit up when she heard this, as if she saw a ray of hope. Longchen stared at Mo Manua and changed the topic. It's a pity that I gave you 2 choices today, but I did not give you the option of letting you go. Mo Manua's face turned pale, but she could not help but ask, other than death, what other choice is there? Longchen stared at Mo Manua and said, acknowledge me as your master and swear in the name of the ancient Saint Emperor. Chapter 780. Mo Manua's decision was too decisive. When the Emperor Lord's remnant soul heard Longchen's words, he snorted coldly and said, let's not talk about the fact that I still have a strand of consciousness left. So what if I die? As long as I swear on my name in the ancient Saint God world, anyone below the God Emperor stage will be killed by the indestructible laws of this world. The Emperor Lord's voice was filled with an unprecedented aura. Longchen nodded and his gaze landed on Mo Manua once again. It's really pitiful for a young master of the Mo clan to end up like you. Longchen said faintly. Mo Manua laughed bitterly and his face was filled with bitterness. As the young master of the Mo Gong clan, he had failed 3 consecutive coronations and his cultivation level had regressed. He had long been abandoned by the upper echelons of the clan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to the Source Soul realm. As a member of the Mo Gong clan, Mo Manua naturally knew the meaning of the oath. He opened his mouth and said to Longchen, Zhan Sun is one of the 10 God Emperors under Zhan Tianquang. He has a coronation token that was personally given to him by Zhan Tianquang. Not only that, I heard that he had promised many precious items to kill you. Longchen nodded and a cold look flashed across his face. Zhan Zixing wanted to scheme against him but he suffered the consequences of his own actions. He was killed by Zhan Lanue. Since Zhan Sun couldn't afford to offend Zhan Tianquang, he placed all his hatred on Longchen. Longchen looked at Mo Manua and said, if there's an opportunity to be crowned, how long will it take for you to recover to your best state? Mo Manua didn't know what Longchen meant and thought that he was just asking casually. She subconsciously replied, if I can gather all the items I need in the Source Soul realm, 1 month will be enough. Black Blood Twin Flower Godly Herb. Snake Tongue 4 Flower Godly Herb. Soul Celery 4 Flower Godly Herb. These 3 godly herbs were what Mo Manua needed. There were close to 20 god emperors who wanted to get their hands on the Source Soul realm, and the news had already spread. As the eldest young master of the Mo family, although Mo Manua wasn't valued, it wasn't difficult for her to obtain such information. I have already failed the coronation 3 times. It is not difficult for me to recover my cultivation level. Mo Manua's words were filled with self-mockery. Longchen looked at Mo Manua and said calmly, when you recover to your peak, I will personally crown you. Mo Manua froze as if she had heard wrongly. Longchen was only a martial emperor. Even though his combat strength was terrifying, how could he crown someone else? Mo Manua was shocked. You want to crown me? Longchen nodded. In fact, it was not his idea to crown this person. It was the remnant soul of the emperor. The monarch lord's remnant soul had never tried to crown an emperor stage expert before. Hence, he wanted to give it a try on Mo Manua. Mo Manua killed Longchen's companions consecutively. Even if she died, she deserved it. I can crown you, but whether you live or die depends on your fate. Longchen replied. Mo Manua was still in shock. She couldn't believe that Longchen could crown her. After a while, she shook her head and laughed bitterly. As long as you can crown me, even if there's only a 1 in 100 chance, I will still try. Mo Manua was very persistent about the coronation. The previous 3 failed coronations had left a shadow in her heart. Even Emperor Mo Gong had lost his patience with her. Longchen didn't care if Mo Manua believed him. The 2 of them headed towards the south of the land of Source Spirits. In the south of the land of Source Spirits, the tall mountains and dense forests had disappeared. What replaced them was a vast plain. The intersection between the plain and the mountains was very strange. It was as if someone had cut it in half. It was extremely neat. This is where the Black Blood 2 Flower Godly Herb is. The other 2 godly herbs shouldn't be too far from here. However, the 2 4 Flower Godly Herbs aren't easy to obtain. Mo Manua said to Longchen. Mo Manua still didn't believe that Longchen could crown her. However, finding these 3 godly herbs to recover her cultivation was her top priority. Now, she even regretted not recovering her cultivation first. Instead, she chose to chase after Longchen. Thinking about this, she cursed John Sun countless times in her heart. As she spoke, Mo Manua had already taken out 2 scarlet incense plates. A red light flashed on the incense plates and they started to burn. The 2 of them had just stepped into the plain when Mo Manua took out this item. She seemed to be very confident. Indeed, in less than 4 hours, the ground in front of them started to shake. A bulge that was tens of meters long and wide appeared on the ground. This bulge rushed towards the 2 of them at an extremely fast speed. Mo Manua had already passed the intersection of the mountains. She stood on top of a mountain and shot an arrow. The arrow pierced through the air and landed on the ground like a black steel awl. Longchen stood in front of the incense plate. He leaped out and visualized an Azura totem in front of him. Roar! When the 2 of them attacked, the rumbling on the ground and the bulge stopped abruptly. What replaced it was a terrifying roar of a demonic beast. This beast's head was like a bat spreading its wings. However, its body was extremely slender like a snake. Its entire body was covered in black and red scales. It seemed to be extremely poisonous. Just this bat's head alone was tens of meters long. As it roared, there was a stench that spread out in all directions. The Black Blood 2 Flower Godly Herb referred to the origin blood essence of this beast. This beast roared as it rushed over. However, it only had eyes for the red incense plate. Under Longchen's Azura totem, Mo Manua's countless arrows fell. In an instant, the beast was annihilated. The huge demonic beast did not last long before it collapsed with a roar of anger. Mo Manua scurried over from afar and said, although this beast is only a level 7 source beast, its strength is almost enough to crush a late-stage martial emperor. If not for the blood-attracting incense, we would not have succeeded so easily. He had been in the ancient Saint Divine world for quite some time and had some understanding of it. The demonic beasts in this world were all origin beasts. There were many of them. Apart from the ordinary demonic beasts, all origin beasts that could be used in medicine had the same intelligence as humans. They were extremely difficult to deal with. As Manua spoke, she had already started to extract the blood. It had to be said that with Long Chen's help, it was much easier for him to move around. Otherwise, just this demonic beast alone would be very troublesome. As she was extracting the blood, Manua's brows suddenly furrowed. She seemed a little surprised. Long Chen leaped into the air and looked down at the beast's huge head. The beast's entire head was empty. Not to mention the origin blood essence, there was not even a trace of flesh. Long Chen shook his head and said, "My actual cultivation is only at the 6th level of the martial emperor realm." 6th level emperor realm? What, you're only at the 6th level of the martial emperor realm? How is this possible? Back then, Long Chen was able to kill late-stage martial emperors and even great circle martial emperors in a few breaths of time. This shocked Manua, and she subconsciously thought that Long Chen was a wandering Earth origin god race member. However, Manua didn't expect that he was only at the 6th level of the martial emperor realm. If that was really the case, then Long Chen's battle prowess was truly ridiculously strong. After a short moment of shock, Manua shook her head and said, "If you were in the great circle of the martial emperor realm, it would be fine. However, you're a 6th level martial emperor realm demonic beast. If you face dozens of source beasts at the same time, the danger will be unimaginable." Although Long Chen was strong, they didn't have the confidence to face dozens of source beasts. If there were a few 8th or 9th level source beasts that were equivalent to the great circle of the martial emperor realm, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Just do as I say." Long Chen shouted coldly and rushed out. He didn't give Manua any chance to say anything. Seeing this, Manua could only shake her head and fly into the distance. She could only pray that if Long Chen died, he wouldn't be buried with him. After all, he had already acknowledged Long Chen as his master. He had even seen with his own eyes the outcome of someone who swore on the ancient Saint Emperor realm. He definitely didn't want such a scene to happen to him. Very few people were willing to swear on the ancient Saint Emperor realm. Many of the guests of the god race would rather sign a contract than to swear on the ancient Saint Emperor realm. This was a vast plain. Although there weren't any high peaks, it was still a good view for Manua. He maintained the maximum distance from Long Chen and was ready to attack at any time. Manua's information was indeed correct. The two of them, one in front and one behind, had only traveled for half a day before they saw the morning glow in the sky. The morning glow was like a rainbow after the rain. It was extremely beautiful, but the scene below made one's hair stand on end. Numerous demonic beasts were tearing and biting each other. It was densely packed. These demonic beasts were each the size of a small mountain and were bathed in the morning glow. The glow covered their roars and their figures. If not for the fact that Long Chen and the rest were less than 10 miles away, they wouldn't have been able to see this scene. "Retreat quickly. This scene has exceeded our capabilities. If you go up there, you will definitely die." Manua had just seen the scene and was constantly transmitting her thoughts to Long Chen. Long Chen frowned and a solemn look appeared on his face. Among these demonic beasts, there were a total of 13 level 8 origin beasts and 1 level 9 origin beast. No one in the Emperor realm would be able to withstand so many high-level source beasts. Moreover, although Long Chen's battle strength was extremely high, he was only a 6th level Emperor realm expert. The voice of the Emperor Lord's remnant soul appeared in Long Chen's mind. Among these level 8 and level 9 origin beasts, 5 of them have lost their origin source. However, they still have 50 to 60% of their strength. Under such circumstances, if you are not careful, you will still lose your life. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul paused for a moment before continuing. However, if you want to find the source soul, I'm afraid you will have to take action. The source soul may be among these origin beasts. If it advances, it will be even more difficult for you to capture it. Longchen nodded. He knew that the origin beast might still be here, but it could also be that this was just its feeding ground. Regardless, if they let this place go, it would be difficult for them to find any traces of the origin beast. If we kill all the demonic beasts here, we will be able to find a trace of the origin beast's aura. At that time, we might be able to kill it before it advances, the Emperor Lord's remnant soul continued. At this point, Longchen no longer hesitated. Release the arrows. Longchen suddenly shouted. His voice was like rolling thunder that spread out in all directions. Emo Manua's face was covered in cold sweat. She looked at Longchen as if she was looking at a madman. The demonic beasts in the distance instantly looked at Longchen and rushed out of the light. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul felt extremely gratified when he saw the demonic beasts that were hundreds of feet tall and looked like moving mountains falling towards Longchen. Chapter 782. Emo Manua felt his scalp go numb when he saw the dozens of beasts charging towards Longchen. His hands were covered in sweat as he continued to shoot arrows. The arrows flew through the air. Just the raging black flames on the arrow alone caused a several-meter-deep gully to appear where the arrow passed. The arrows fell. Like a black rain falling on the ground, the beasts were drowned in an instant. Roar, roar. The beasts' roars shook the sky. Longchen did not dare to slow down because he knew that the truly powerful beasts behind him were the level 8 and level 9 origin beasts. The first volley of arrows directly killed all the demonic beasts below the 5th rank. However, these arrows had no effect on the high-grade demonic beasts at all. They were only able to burn their bodies. One by one, the Class 8 demonic beasts roared out in rage, "Kill this human first, then deal with the one who shot the arrow from afar." After that, all the beasts pounced on Longchen. Longchen was extremely fast and did not stop at all. His figure was like a rainbow as he dodged the attacks of the high-level beasts. Emo Manua was shocked when he saw Longchen jumping around like a speck of light under the torrential attacks. Arrows quickly formed in his hands and shot through the air. With every arrow that was shot out, his face turned a little paler. Bang! When the first arrow landed, a level 8 origin beast was sent flying. Half of its body even burned with black flames. This beast was the closest to Longchen. Even when the arrow was about to land, it still swung its claws at Longchen. This attack was unavoidable. Longchen raised his hand and attacked. When the beast was sent flying, Longchen's face turned pale. As expected of a level 8 origin beast, this attack is enough to kill an ordinary Great Circle Emperor. Even if it encounters some divine race, it would not be at a disadvantage. Longchen was shocked and his face turned serious. A level 8 origin beast was equivalent to a level 8 Great Circle Emperor. However, its combat power was no weaker than a Great Circle Emperor. If not for Emo Manua's arrow from afar, Longchen would have been severely injured by this attack. Seeing this, Longchen's speed increased even more. In fact, Longchen's route was informed by the Emperor Lord's remnant soul. After all, some of these demonic beasts had already lost their origin, so their attack power was greatly reduced. Otherwise, Longchen would not have dared to take such a risk. But Emo Manua, who was a distance away, stared at Longchen in shock as she drew her bow. He had never imagined that Longchen would actually dare to exchange blows with a rank 8 Genesis beast. He even suspected that Longchen wasn't telling him the truth. Even if the Earth Source God clan reached the 6th level of the Martial Emperor realm, they wouldn't be able to achieve this. As arrow after arrow fell, Source beasts began to fall one after another. Longchen was like bait, constantly provoking these Source beasts. Despicable human. The Source beasts died one by one, but they couldn't do anything to Emo Manua. With Longchen in front, Emo Manua was in an invincible position. During this time, several level 8 demonic beasts wanted to take the lead and charge towards Mo Manua, but they were all forced back by the arrows and restrained by Long Chen. Rumble. By the time the last source beast died, Long Chen's body had almost been blasted to pieces. Mo Manua let out a long sigh and rushed towards Long Chen. They had used almost 2 days to kill these origin beasts. In these 2 days, apart from Long Chen, they had exchanged blows with these demonic beasts more than 10 times. The rest of the time, they mainly fought and relied on Mo Manua's archery skills to kill. Mo Manua looked at Long Chen's body slowly condensing in front of her with a solemn expression. In these 2 days, she had really witnessed Long Chen's terrifying battle strength. At least in Mo Manua's impression, no one could exchange blows with these demonic beasts more than 10 times under such circumstances. Long Chen's body condensed, his face full of lingering fear. He said in a low voice, "If not for the fact that your archery skills are powerful enough to kill level 8 origin beasts, I'm afraid it would take at least a month to get rid of these demonic beasts." When he finished speaking, Long Chen didn't have any intention to continue speaking. As soon as his body condensed, he began to return and collect the corpses of these demonic beasts. An inscription seal appeared on his right index finger. Wherever the seal passed, a light green brilliance would enter the origin beast's corpse. After a few hours, Mo Manua was surprised when she saw the light green aura condensing in Long Chen's hand. This aura was trapped in Long Chen's palm, but there seemed to be an invisible force outside his palm that wanted to pull it away. "This is the aura of the origin spirit?" Mo Manua felt agitated. Long Chen nodded, and the two of them rushed towards the direction of the light strands of aura. After traveling for a few days, the two had already walked out of the grassland, and a vast ocean gradually appeared in front of their eyes. Mo Manua suddenly stopped and said to Long Chen, "This is the border of the 9 treasures realm. It should be a volcanic land, how could it become a vast ocean?" Hearing Mo Manua's words, Long Chen frowned and said in a low voice, "Volcanic land? You're saying that this is the location of the 3rd divine medicine that you're looking for?" Mo Manua nodded. At this moment, the two already had some ideas in their hearts. It seemed that the fortune that was born in the origin spirit's land was, in fact, specially created by the origin spirit to step into the 3rd stage. Most likely, the origin spirit's traces were not only found in the first 2 divine medicine places, but in other places as well. Rumble. Just as the two were conversing, they suddenly saw a tsunami of thousands of feet in the distance, forming a huge screen. Someone is fighting in the middle of the ocean. Long Chen and Mo Manua looked at each other and rushed towards the place where the tsunami appeared. Mo Manua's speed was much slower than Long Chen's. It was not that he could not catch up to Long Chen's footsteps, but he knew that he could only unleash his greatest battle strength from a distance. This was also the strength of the Mo Bao clan. After a while, Long Chen was already less than a few thousand meters away from the place where the tsunami was raging, and he could already hear the sounds of fighting from afar. Rays of resplendent divine brilliance came from the bottom of the ocean. "Long Chen, you're actually not dead." A cry of surprise mixed with joy came from the bottom of the ocean. Long Chen was stunned, and immediately rushed straight into the ocean. He heard clearly that this voice came from Kang Dahai. When he dived 100 meters into the ocean, he saw Kang Dahai and 3 other people holding lotus flames and fighting with 3 water dragons. Although the 4 of them were holding lotus flames, the 3 water dragons were all rank 7 origin beasts, and their battle strength was extremely high underwater. With a single move, countless water dragons attacked. Chapter 783. Rumble. Long Chen landed on the back of one of the beasts. With a single punch, he managed to shatter the defensive water ripples around the beasts. The beasts seemed to be completely enraged. Hundreds of sharp spears appeared from all directions, all formed from water ripples. Every azure-long spear with divine patterns rolled back and attacked Long Chen, who was on his back. Azure whirling elephant. A black light flashed in Long Chen's eyes. An azure shadow mixed with the countless chains formed and suppressed the beast's body. Dragon God Transformation. Under the Azura totem, the long spear's speed suddenly slowed down. However, an almost solid shadow appeared on Long Chen's arms. Rumble. Long Chen punched out with both fists. The spears in the sky began to shatter one by one. Then, the beasts below his feet howled in pain. Long Chen's right hand pierced into the beast's body. He crushed its spine, shattered its skull, and scattered its origin. These beasts have inscriptions on their origin. Although they have the strength of a level 8 origin beast, they do not have intelligence. The voice of the Emperor's remnant soul lingered in Long Chen's ears. Long Chen nodded. He was very clear about this. If not for this, he would not have been able to defeat this level 7 origin beast so easily. After killing one of the beasts, Long Chen whizzed out and was about to attack the other two beasts. However, the two beasts quickly fled to the sides and only stopped when they were 10,000 meters away. Long Chen frowned. Just as he was about to give chase, he saw the water ripples 10,000 meters away closing in on him, Kang Dahai, and the others at a speed visible to the naked eye. Oh no! Long Chen and Kang Dahai's expressions changed. However, the water ripples had already reached them in the blink of an eye. The water ripples formed an azure water prison with Long Chen as the center. In the distance, Emo Manua waved her right hand and a water pillar dragged him tens of thousands of meters in the air. The longbow in his right hand had already begun to move, and a black arrow was condensed. However, the arrow in his hand suddenly froze and he exclaimed, "This is the Nine Treasures Realm Water Beast God Race's God-sealing water prison. A direct descendant of the Water Beast God Race has made his move." Emo Manua's face was solemn. She should have thought of this earlier. This place was already at the edge of the Nine Treasures realm. If there was someone who could turn all the volcanoes here into an ocean, it could only be the Water Beast God Race of the Nine Treasures realm. The Water Beast Celestial Race's influence in the Nine Treasures realm far surpassed the Ink Bao Celestial Race. Within the Black Bao Celestial Race, there was only one Juzang Dizuan crowned Black Bao Celestial Emperor. On the other hand, the Water Beast God clan had many imperial emperors, and these imperial emperors were all crowned by venerable sovereigns. The reason why the Nine Treasures realm was named Nine Treasures was because there were 9 great divine clans within this realm. The number of imperial emperors from the 9 divine clans accounted for almost 3 times the number of Juzang Dizuan's subordinates. Emo Manua's heart sank into loneliness. Just as she was thinking about it, she saw water ripples forming 100 meters in front of Long Chen. When the water ripples dissipated, 3 great perfection martial emperors appeared. The leader stared at Long Chen and clapped his hands continuously. There was a playful look on his face. "You're Long Chen? You're just SOSO. I've been toying with these people for more than 10 days, and you've finally appeared. Your life is still worth something," the leader said calmly. This person's skin was azure blue. On his skin, there was a water ripple every finger's width, as if it was alive. The strangest thing was that these 3 great perfection martial emperors looked exactly the same, as if they were made from the same mold. Long Chen frowned and looked at Kang Dahai and the rest. He realized that they did not seem to know that something like this would happen. He said in a low voice, "How did you know that I would come here?" The man snorted coldly and became even more disdainful. A water ripple on his right hand flickered rapidly. Thunder rumbled continuously in the sea. These thunder roared under the water and made a deafening sound, setting off huge tsunamis. When the tsunamis dissipated, there was a cage every 10 kilometers. Origin beasts were locked up in these cages, and many of them were even locked up with humans. There were no less than 10 cages of different sizes. There were even humans and source beasts that were imprisoned together. The scene was extremely bloody. The source beasts treated the humans as food. Because all the fortunes in the source spirit land point to this place, anyone who has the means to find this place sooner or later. These demonic beasts are no exception. When he finished speaking, the man grabbed with his right hand and the source spirit of a dragon beast was pulled out. There was a special aura condensing on it. Long Chen was enlightened. The reason why the demonic beasts in the second divine herb had the aura of source spirits was not because of the source spirits, but because the man had driven out the demonic beasts that had been devoured by the source spirits. Longchen looked at the dozens of cages of different sizes in all directions and suddenly sneered. It seems that you have trapped the source spirit in this body of water a long time ago, but you don't know how to find the source spirit. I can only capture living creatures for him to devour. Once he advances, he will have nowhere to hide. There were also some powerful divine race members in the cages. They stared at the water beast divine race member with gloomy faces. Kang Dahai, who was standing behind Longchen, smiled bitterly and said, "The Northfoot territory and the Nine Treasures territory are unwilling to enter the source spirit land openly, so they sent us here to fight." In the end, the source spirit was trapped in this body of water by the water beast divine race long before we arrived. The leader of the water beast divine race laughed coldly and mockingly. He said in a deep voice, "No, my water beast divine race also waited for you to arrive before entering this place. Otherwise, how could the other emperors sit by and do nothing? But after I kill all of you and seize the source spirit, they won't be able to stop me even if they find out. After all, this is the border of the Nine Treasures territory." Everyone's expression was extremely ugly. Just as the man said, when the source spirit was gone, which emperor would be willing to provoke the water beast divine race? Other emperors might be afraid, but the water beast divine race was considered a giant in the Nine Treasures territory, and there was more than one emperor in the clan. Manua was extremely far away and did not seem to attract attention. He did not dare to act rashly, but he also did not dare to escape. He could only watch from afar. Chapter 784. The appearance of the water beast god race was out of everyone's expectations. Longchen's expression did not change at all as he was trapped in the water prison. However, cries of agony could be heard all around him. The water prison closest to Shui Tianmu started to change. Rays of azure blue threads started to weave through the prison, each of them seeping into the souls of the living beings. Regardless of whether it was the source beasts or the human race, none of them were spared. This person seems to be well prepared for the source soul. He wants to use the lives of these people to force the source soul to appear. The voice of the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul appeared in Longchen's ears. With so many souls being cut into runes and suppressed here, if the source soul did not devour them, it would be completely destroyed. Longchen saw through Shui Tianmu's methods and thought that this person was quite ruthless. The runes and methods were not brilliant, but they had to be sure that the source soul truly existed in this ocean and could not leave. Only then would it be effective. However, if the source soul remained in the prison and only appeared at the end to devour the souls, the people in the prison would all die. Longchen's thoughts moved slightly as he communicated with the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul. "I can break this prison, but it is impossible to save the others." The three water beast god races cultivators are all at the peak of the martial emperor realm. Their strength is unparalleled, almost on par with Jean Lanue. There is only one way out now, and that is to snatch the source soul and escape. Longchen's eyes seemed to be looking at Manua from afar. Manua was also from a large race within the Nine Treasures realm. With his magic weapon and his own strength, it was enough to buy Longchen an opportunity to escape. The Sovereign Lord's remnant soul pondered for a moment and came up with a plan. He said to Longchen, "The runes prepared by the water beast god race and the seal used to trap the source soul are all very meticulous. If you want to take drastic measures, not only do you have to break this water prison, you also have to defeat the source soul the moment he defeats it. You have to be the first to obtain the source soul." The Sovereign Lord's remnant soul's plan made Longchen frown. Shui Tianmu's cultivation level was the strongest among the three water beast god races cultivators. Longchen's cultivation level of the martial emperor realm was only at the 6th level. However, it was not impossible to defeat him when he was unprepared. But such actions were no different than putting his life on the line. Once he was slightly careless and didn't retreat, he would probably be suppressed within 10 breaths of time at most. Longchen exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and made a decision in his heart. In the ancient Saint Divine world, Emperor Realm experts were as common as carps crossing the river. Manua was far away. Compared to Longchen, who was in the water prison, he was more anxious. In his eyes, Longchen was already in deep trouble. In order to survive, I have sworn to serve this person as my master. It has only been a few days. Am I going to die? Manua's breathing was heavy and his eyes were red. Manua was the eldest son of the Gong celestial race. He had been crowned thrice at such a young age. His determination and talent were impressive. But he was really afraid of death. At least, he had never attacked anyone who was stronger than him. This habit came from his father, the Gong celestial emperor. Those who knew the Gong celestial emperor would know that he was never defeated. I can't die. I want to be crowned for the 4th time. I want those bastards to see me become the celestial emperor. Manua looked at Longchen in the water prison and was furious. Now that Longchen was dead, he would definitely not leave Manua alive. Regardless of whether it was Manua or Longchen, she had already seen through Longchen's character in these few days. He didn't expect Longchen to be merciful and spare his life before he died. In fact, Manua's guess was right. Previously, Manua had killed the people around Longchen. Now, she was chasing after Longchen one after another. If not for the fact that he was useful, Longchen would have taken his life. Why would he bother to make a vow? Manua took out the 2 divine herbs that Longchen had snatched and stuffed them into his mouth. He flew into the sky and wanted to raise his cultivation to the peak in a short period of time. At the same time, Longchen did not know that while he was trapped in the water prison, Manua had already started to fight for his life. Everyone was trembling in fear when they saw the souls of the living beings in the water prison being sucked out. In a short period of time, more than 10 people and more than 10 origin beasts had died. Shui Tianmu, don't be so ruthless. You came to the border with Juzangdizuan. If you get into a conflict with the emperors of other regions, the consequences are not something that your water beast clan can bear. We are here on the orders of the emperors. If the emperors know that your clan has entered this place without permission, the voices were filled with fear as they carried out their last resistance. Shui Tianmu's eyes were as cold as ice and did not even tremble. Seeing that almost half of the people in the water prison had died, the inscription on his right hand suddenly trembled and seemed to slow down. Longchen, who was standing in the water prison, suddenly narrowed his eyes. He sent a message to Kangdahai and the others with his divine sense: if the water prison breaks open, immediately rush into the depths of the sea and escape in the opposite direction from me. Kangdahai and the rest looked at each other with gratitude in their eyes. He could not help but glance at Longchen's hands that were hidden in his sleeves. The few of them were the closest to Longchen and could already feel the dangerous aura coming from him. Buzz! 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 Beams of light suddenly flashed in the direction of one of the Water Beast clan members. Shui Tianmu's face suddenly changed and he suddenly turned around to attack his clansmen behind him. When I enter the 3rd stage, all of you will die. That person said in an unpleasant voice that made one's scalp numb. This source soul was already so high, it was enough to see that he could enter the 3rd stage at any time. Swoosh! The source soul did not pay any attention to Shui Tianmu. Instead, his body suddenly exploded, creating a storm that filled the sky. Waves rose everywhere. Even Shui Tianmu could not help but take a few steps back. His face was very gloomy. Above the sky, in the void, an illusory soul that looked like smoke was filled with suffocating source strength and soul power. Chapter 785. Shui Tianmu's expression was unsightly. At this moment, he finally understood why he couldn't find the source soul even though he knew it was trapped in the ocean. He had turned into someone who was traveling with Shui Tianmu. The 3 of them came from the 9th treasure realm and never left each other's side. He didn't expect that one of them had been taken over by the source soul. The source soul crazily devoured the god origins of the people killed by Shui Tianmu and the formation runes. the hollow souls around it started to solidify at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the water prison, the remaining people's expressions changed drastically. Once the source soul reached the third stage, they would all die here. At this moment, they even hoped that Shui Tianmu could take the source soul. Perhaps they could find a chance to survive. Heavenly Water Pearl, cover. Shui Tianmu didn't disappoint them. He seemed to have prepared for this. Water ripples flickered all over his body. He intertwined with another clansman behind him and started to form a seal. Rumble. Everyone suddenly felt the water around them start to shrink. The water turned into a long river and gushed out. A fist-sized blue pearl condensed in front of Shui Tianmu and his clansmen. As the pearl spun, the ocean started to disappear at a speed visible to the naked eye. Do you think I, Shui Tianmu, am an idiot? Today, as long as you show yourself, even if you reach the third stage, you will only be killed. Shui Tianmu waved his right hand in the air, and the bead rose into the air. 9 water serpents that were over 1,000 feet long appeared around it. The water flood dragon swayed, and in the next moment, it transformed into 9 ocean blue chains that pierced through the origin soul's body. Fear also appeared on the terrifying face formed by the origin soul. No! A roar came from the source soul's mouth, and an incomparably powerful suction force frantically devoured the souls of the living beings in all directions. Kang Dahai and the others' expressions changed drastically. Even at this moment, the water prison still hadn't been broken. They knew that Shui Tianmu didn't plan to let them go. At the same time, they even felt how terrifying the source soul's tearing of their god origins was. Everyone seemed to be in a daze. Their god souls were about to leave their bodies. Especially the source beasts, they fell down one by one. Their god souls were torn into the source soul's mouth. For a moment, the source soul and Shui Tianmu were locked in an extremely anxious tug-of-war. However, everyone could see clearly that Shui Tianmu had prepared everything. He and the people around him were constantly forming all kinds of formation runes and bombarding their source souls. In reality, they didn't know. If it weren't for the fact that Shui Tianmu had one less person by his side, the source soul would have been taken down long ago. The Heavenly Water Pearl was one of the Aqua Beast Divine Clan's Dharma artifacts. Long Chen remained in his original position, watching the show from the sidelines. He looked calm, but his heart was heavy. Shui, Tian, and Mu's battle prowess was truly terrifying. If he was even slightly careless, he would most likely perish here today. He was looking for an opportunity, the best opportunity to strike. On the other side, Mo Manua's cultivation had actually reached the 9th level of the Martial Emperor realm. However, her cultivation was extremely unstable and her eyes were slightly red. He had failed to be crowned thrice, so his comprehension of the realms was frighteningly fast. However, directly swallowing the divine medicine in such a short period of time was still extremely harmful to him. Huff! Mo Manua saw the continuous changes below and immediately wanted to shoot an arrow to save Long Chen. At this moment, the source soul wasn't important in his eyes. He only wanted to break the water prison and save Long Chen's life. Because this was also saving his own life. Buzz. However, just as he was about to shoot the arrow, Long Chen's divine sense was transmitted to him while Shui Tianmu was preoccupied. Mo Manua's hand froze and she stopped shooting the arrow. Then, her entire face was filled with disbelief. However, after a while, she slowly moved the arrow toward Shui Tianmu's direction. She watched as Shui Tianmu controlled the heavenly water droplet to suppress the source soul that was about to reach the 3rd level. Her hands couldn't help but tremble. What kind of person did I meet? At this juncture, he still wants to snatch the source soul. Mo Manua laughed bitterly in her heart. At this moment, the voice of the Martial Emperor's remnant soul sounded. The quality of this person's weapon is not bad. Do you still want to strike? Even without the source soul, you can reach the peak of the Emperor realm in 2 years. Long Chen understood the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul's warning. Just as the martial emperor's remnant soul and Mo Manua thought, it was too risky for Long Chen to strike now. If he and Mo Manua could easily destroy the water prison now, Shui Tianmu wouldn't have time to chase after the two of them. 2 years? I don't have many years left. Long Chen muttered. The martial emperor fell silent. He knew what Long Chen meant. Within the Dragon Palace, Yi Halan's source soul was still stored in the ice coffin of fortune. The martial emperor's remnant soul sighed. It's too difficult to reach the sector lord within 100 years. The chance of success is less than 1 in a million. This 1 in a million chance is to find all the source soul left in my body and use my strength to help you reach the Emperor realm. Now that my body is in the hands of countless experts in the ancient Saint Divine world, the Emperor realm is the lowest level of existence. It's easier said than done to get it. Long Chen's eyes were like knives as he stared at Shui Tianmu, looking for the perfect opportunity. He said to the martial emperor's remnant soul, "My past life was full of ups and downs. In this life, I've reversed the reincarnation cycle and smoothed everything out. I should be satisfied. But Master is in my soul. She knows that Yi Hailan died because of me. She's a person with a bitter life." The martial emperor's remnant soul shook his head and sighed. How can there not be regrets in the world? How can everything be smoothed out? Even though I was the sector lord in my previous life, the martial emperor's remnant soul stopped abruptly, unwilling to continue. Maybe it's because I've been supporting myself for hundreds of years in my previous life. But now, I can't feel at ease and I can't be satisfied. Long Chen continued. No matter who's right or wrong, if I don't let her die, she can't die. At least, she can't die because of me. After that, Long Chen pulled out his hands from his sleeves. He clenched his fists and there were 2 blood-soaked sword rays in his hands. The moment the sword light appeared, the water prison in front of him seemed to be evaporated by the flames, turning into water vapor that filled the sky. Zhan Lanua's 2 sword rays. These were the life-saving treasures that Zhan Lanua gave to Long Chen. Although the 2 sword rays were formed by Zhan Lanua, they were filled with the aura of an imperial emperor. It was probably related to Imperial Emperor Zhang Quan. The moment the sword rays appeared, Shui Tianmu and his clansmen felt needles on their backs. But they didn't have time to turn around. Chapter 786. When the heavenly water pearl landed in Shui Tianmu's hand, his origin soul let out an indignant roar. Shui Tianmu did not have time to rejoice when his origin soul was captured. Almost at the same time, he was about to unleash his battle technique to block Long Chen's attack. Swoosh! 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 Just as Shui Tianmu was about to raise his hand, a series of arrows flew towards him. There were a total of 7 black arrows. Some of them were fast while others were slow. However, all of them were aimed at Shui Tianmu's major acupuncture points. Bai Hui, Heavenly Palace, Dantian, every sword strike was powerful enough to severely injure any martial emperor. Magong Clan? Shui Tianmu's expression changed as he slapped the air with his left hand. The water ripples turned into a black tortoise that was tens of thousands of feet tall. The water curtain on the back of the black tortoise blocked the arrows. The other member of the Aqua Beast God clan hurriedly blocked the attack. In the next moment, blood spurted out from his body. Long Chen appeared beside Shui Tianmu as though he had teleported. The 2 sword rays in his hands sliced off Shui Tianmu's entire right arm. He grabbed the heavenly water pearl from Shui Tianmu's hand. Let's go! Long Chen let out an explosive roar, and his entire body had already swept past Shui Tianmu's location, flying into the distance. Bang! 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 In the next moment, arrows exploded in the air one after another. Black flames filled the sky. Mo Manua was drenched in cold sweat. Her clothes were drenched. When she heard Long Chen's words, she immediately dashed towards the distance. The 2 of them attacked when Shui Tianmu was collecting his origin soul. Their coordination was flawless. The black flames that filled the sky and Long Chen's two sword rays that had yet to be extinguished were their opportunity to escape. How dare you steal my origin soul? Shui Tianmu's angry roar shook the sky. Countless streams of water appeared in the air. Bang! 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 Long Chen's expression changed, but he did not stop moving. He unleashed his soul skill to its maximum. Anything that stood in his way would be smashed to pieces with a single punch. You go after the Magon clan member. I'll go after Long Chen. Shui Tianmu said as he dashed towards Long Chen. His right arm that was chopped off by Long Chen had regenerated. At this moment, his face was extremely gloomy. He had taken many risks to obtain the origin soul. He had even taken out the heavenly water pearl. He wanted to end this battle quickly. But at the last moment, the origin soul was stolen by Long Chen. The anger in his heart began to burn like a raging flame. Manua had just rushed out for 10,000 meters when she felt the water vapor condensing around her. She felt as though she had sunk into a quagmire. Divine art, water void pond. Although the person behind Manua was not as good as him, he was actually proficient in long-range attacks. After he shot the arrow, he began to flee. Moreover, he was extremely far away. However, he was still held back at the first moment. On the other side, Shui Tianmu held an azure long spear in his right hand and chased after Long Chen. Splat! He waved his long spear, and the divine radiance fell on Long Chen like a rainbow. A terrifying wound appeared on Long Chen's back. Blood spurted out of his mouth. His eyes were filled with cold determination, but his speed suddenly soared again. He was only at level 6 of the Martial Emperor realm. Although he could easily defeat a peak Martial Emperor, he was still a far cry from Shui Tianmu, who had a strong origin soul. The Monarch Emperor's remnant soul transmitted a message to Long Chen: this person is hiding his divine wheel. He's already a peak monarch. It seems like he wants to use the origin spirit to become an imperial emperor. It's useless for you to continue running. His strength is beyond our expectations. Furthermore, he has a long-range attack. You can't unleash your full speed. Long Chen understood in his heart. The constant flow of water from all directions was tiring him out. Shui Tianmu's strength was also beyond his imagination. Release the origin soul. This is the only thing that can hold him back. He will not give up the origin soul to pursue you in order to become an emperor. The emperor's remnant soul said. Extract the origin soul from the origin soul and give him the origin soul. This item is coveted by all the emperors. You have not reached the peak Martial Emperor realm. You can't use it. It will be a disaster if you keep it with you. The emperor's remnant soul reminded him. Long Chen nodded. This was the only thing he could do. Furthermore, Shui Tianmu did not have the heavenly water pearl. Even if the origin soul did not have a body, it could still make him suffer. As Long Chen flew, his soul rushed into the heavenly water pearl. The heavenly water pearl seemed to have formed a world of its own. The origin soul was in the center of the 9 water serpents. Give me your origin soul and I will let you leave this place. Otherwise, I will kill you. Long Chen's soul transmitted a message to the origin soul. When the origin soul heard this, its illusory soul actually trembled like a sieve, as if it was being suppressed by an extremely terrifying power. The origin soul's eyes stared at Long Chen in shock. He could clearly feel the terrifying intent contained in the divine thought. I will give it to you. The origin soul could not move at all. He quickly agreed as if he was shocked by Long Chen's divine thought. He was very confused. The human in front of him was only a level 6 Martial Emperor. How could he have such a terrifying divine thought? However, he did not know that the divine thought was mixed with the Emperor's remnant soul's power. After that, a seemingly real and illusory stone bar appeared in the illusory soul formed by the origin soul. The stone strip was only as thick as a finger. It was colorful. Long Chen's divine thought immediately left the heavenly water pearl. Since you want the origin soul, I will return it to you. Longchen laughed coldly. With a wave of his hand, he removed all the chains around the source soul and the heavenly water pearl. Buzz. The origin soul appeared behind Longchen like a gust of cold wind. He looked at Longchen in horror as soon as he appeared. He rushed toward the courtyard as if he was afraid of Longchen. Origin soul. Shui Tianmu's feet suddenly stopped when the origin soul appeared. He watched the origin soul escape. He gloomily glanced at Longchen and, as expected, chose to charge towards the source soul. He only left behind a sentence filled with killing intent: once I subdue the source soul, I will definitely extract your soul and make you suffer for 100 years. Longchen didn't care about Shui Tianmu at all and had already left. On the other side, with Longchen's interference, most of the people in the water prison managed to survive. The news quickly spread to all the forces that participated in the origin soul fight. Many people even began to send messages to the various imperial emperors. The Water Beast clan was one of the 9 god clans in the 9 treasures realm. Now that they had openly entered the border between the 9 treasures realm and the North Foot realm and killed people to steal their origin souls, the emperors were furious. Chapter 787. At the border between the North Foot realm and the 9 treasures realm. More and more Monarch realm experts entered the 9 treasures realm. Most of them were subordinates of the imperial emperors. These people were different from Longchen and the others who came from the land of the Lost Ones. Some of them were even crowned Monarch realm experts. Shui Tianmu of the Water Beast god race managed to obtain the Source Soul after 3 days of pursuit. After obtaining the Source Soul, the Water Beast god race had no intention of leaving. Instead, they sent more of their people into the land of the Source Soul. In the land of the Source Soul, other than the Source Soul, there were many other places of fortune. There were also many divine herbs above the 3 flowers. The Water Beast god race's high profile had angered the Monarch realm subordinates of the imperial emperors. In just a few days, many small-scale battles broke out. There were many Monarch realm experts in the War Kingdom, including Zhan Lanyue. In the northern mountain range near the land of the Source Soul, Zhan Lanyue led a few hundred peak Monarch realm experts and forced a group of Water Beast god race into a corner. Zhan Lanyue, is the War Kingdom really going to war with us Water Beast god race? Zhan Tianquang is just an imperial emperor. If all the Water Beast god race's imperial emperors come, you will all die. Whoosh! The dozens of great emperors were terrified, but they still wanted to find a way out. Just as they finished their words, Zhan Lanyue's hand flashed and killed the closest Monarch realm expert. Zhan Lanyue's face was as cold as ice. She pointed her sword and said, "Kill them all." Ah! In an instant, screams of agony echoed across the northern border. In just a few breaths, dozens of Monarch realm experts were all dead, leaving only one god race expert. Zhan Lanyue stared at him and said coldly, "The Water Beast god race and the War Kingdom are both near the land of the Source Soul. That day, it was you who sent the messenger, in order to prevent the imperial emperors from interfering." Then the Water Beast god race broke the agreement and allowed Shui Tianmu to snatch the Source Soul. Zhan Lanyue paused for a second and said, "Go back and tell your patriarch that the War Kingdom has not only my father, Imperial Emperor Zhan Quan, but also Imperial Emperor Zhan Quan." After that, the Water Beast god clan's people fled in panic, disappearing into the horizon. After he left, Zhan Lanyue turned around and said, "Continue to search for that Imperial Emperor called Longchen. Kill all the aquatic beasts you see, and if the other Imperial Emperors want to fight, just accept them." Close to 100 great emperors nodded in agreement. Every one of them could feel a storm brewing. After the death of the ancient Saint Emperor, the entire ancient Saint Divine world fell into a state of conflict. Below the Emperor Lord level, there was a separation and collapse. Various levels of power became independent one after another. There were even large-scale wars that broke out. In comparison, however, the 9 Treasures Divine King and Ethereal King's North Foot Realm and 9 Treasures Realm had always been peaceful. The matter of Source Souls this time seemed to have involved the likes of sovereigns. An emperor had 10,000 emperors under him. Whether it was the Aqua Beast gods or Emperor Zhang Kuang, both of them had strong foundations in their respective realms. The Water Beast God clan's origin was extremely deep. Many emperors below the Divine King realm all had emperors under them, so their influence was evident. As for Emperor Zhang Kuang, it was highly likely that he would enter the emperor realm in a short period of time. Moreover, he had his elder brother, Emperor Zhang Kuang, behind him. When these two forces started to fight, it was highly likely that the last barrier would be torn apart. The 100 great emperors behind Zhang Lanyu spread out once again. Wherever they passed, the great emperors would retreat. Although the emperors were also fighting, none of them were willing to get involved in the Battle Kingdom and the Water Beast God clan's mess. Who is that Long Chen? Why is the young miss looking for him? Maybe he's already dead? I have some understanding of this matter. I heard that the young miss personally brought him back and gave him the position of guest elder. Their relationship seems to be quite good. Guest elder? That Zhan Sun wants to kill. Before this person could finish his sentence, everyone's expression darkened and signaled him to stop talking. Within the Battle Kingdom, Zhan Sun secretly used extreme methods to take Long Chen's life. Although this matter was kept secret, it was still a matter of the Battle Kingdom. Because of Long Chen, Zhan Zixing died. People had already started to pay attention to this matter. Bang! A few days later, in the Nine Treasures Realm's border city where the Water Beast God clan was located, the city lord's palace was resplendent. Shui Tianmu sat on the golden seat in the center of the palace. Shui Tianmu's eyes emitted a blue light and smashed the 10-meter-long stone table in front of him into pieces. The people around him kept quiet. He said coldly, "That crazy woman Zhan Lanyu has killed nearly 100 great emperors of my clan." An old man stood up from the right and bowed. "Young Master Tianmu, since you have obtained the Source Soul, you should return to the clan as soon as possible. This item might be able to increase the Great Elder's chances of breaking through to the Emperor Realm. If an Emperor Realm cultivator appears in our clan, we won't have to bow down to the Emperors in the Nine Treasures Realm. We can take advantage of the situation and become an overlord." As soon as the old man finished speaking, Shui Tianmu squinted his eyes and a cold light blasted the old man's body. The old man trembled in fear and the people around him all lowered their heads. Shui Tianmu sneered, "The Patriarch ordered us not to participate in the battle for the Source Soul. Now, I have disobeyed the order and obtained the Source Soul. Do you really think I am doing this for that old fart's chance of breaking through to the Emperor Realm? This Source Soul can help me break through to the Emperor Realm. Once I break through to the Emperor Realm, even if I am wrong, the Patriarch will not pursue this matter." Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They had been selected by Shui Tianmu from the Water Beast God clan's subordinate forces. Now, they knew what Shui Tianmu was thinking. After a short moment of shock, everyone became more respectful. Shui Tianmu had a high status in the Water Beast God clan. It was said that when he was born, there were 2 divine rivers running across the sky. There was a saying left behind by a cultivator who cultivated the heavenly fate. He would be the one with the heavenly fate in the Water Beast God clan. With the divine river ancient body, as long as he could pass the Emperor Realm tribulation, his future would be smooth sailing. This matter was not a secret in the Water Beast God clan. In fact, almost everyone knew about it for a period of time. Unfortunately, this matter was gradually forgotten in the past few decades. Shui Tianmu had been stuck at the peak of the Emperor Realm for too long. All divine herbs and all kinds of methods were useless. If Shui Tianmu could really catch the Source Soul and break through to the Emperor Realm, then even if the Water Beast God clan was angry, they would not punish him. Shui Tianmu saw that no one spoke and coldly snorted, "Continue to dispatch troops and find Long Chen. Without the Source Soul in his hands, I can't devour the Source Soul. Chapter 788. After the birth of the Source Spirit, the land of nearly 100 mountains was called the Source Spirit Land. It was located at the border between the Nine Treasures Realm and the North Foot Realm. there was a city at the border between the Source Spirit Land and the Nine Treasures realm called Ruashue City. This city was under the jurisdiction of the Water Beast God clan. Outside the city, at this moment, there were more than a dozen forces watching. On the city, a man was pinned to death in the center of the city wall by a few long nails covered with water patterns. His face was full of pain. Isn't that Mo Manua of the Black Bow God clan? How did he offend the Water Beast God clan, to be hanged here to be tortured? It is said that it is for a guy called Long Chen, who took the Source Spirit body from Shui Tianmu that day. Long Chen, is he the person that the Warring States have been looking for? The Warring States and the Water Beast God clan are like fire and water these days. It seems that there are many crowned emperors rushing here. Everyone present was discussing animatedly. Many of them were under the orders of other emperors of the two realms, and there were even crowned emperors. But now, nearly half of the emperors had given up on the Source Spirit Land. Especially the emperors of the North Foot realm and the Nine Treasures realm, who were watching the fire burn across the river. Most of these people had come for the other fortunes in the land of origin souls. For example, a 5-flower divine herb appeared a few days ago in the north of the Source Spirit Land. It was flowing with colorful clouds and Genesis Chi, which attracted many emperors to fight for it. A few hundred miles away from Ruashue City, Long Chen was dressed in black and wore a bamboo hat to cover his face. He looked into the distance for a long time before quickly disappearing into the horizon. Shui Tianmu captured Mo Manua. It seems that he wants the Source Spirit body in my hands. In a hidden mountain, Long Chen used the method taught by the Emperor's remnant soul to isolate himself from all detection as he looked at the Source Spirit body in his hands and muttered, "If Mo Manua can survive 100 days, I will save him. At that time, all the previous grievances will be written off. Even if the coronation fails, I will find a way to keep him alive." It had to be said. Mo Manua was very unlucky. At least from his point of view, Shui Tianmu using him to force Long Chen to show himself was an idiotic act. Before he accepted Long Chen as his master, he had wanted to kill Long Chen. With such a relationship, he did not believe that Long Chen would risk his life to appear. After all, coming to Ruashue City was tantamount to seeking death. He had begged Shui Tianmu at least a few hundred times. However, Shui Tianmu didn't believe it at all. At least, if it wasn't for Mo Manua, Long Chen wouldn't have been able to snatch away the origin soul and heavenly water pearl. Long Chen's hands continuously streaked across the air, and one rune after another landed on the Source Soul body before him. His Source Soul body immediately emitted a dazzling light, and streams of Source energy seemed to transform into countless tiny rivers. Every river emitted a buzzing sound, as if there were giant beasts that were about to rush out. The rivers transformed into countless shadows of gods and poured into Long Chen's body. They condensed into palm-sized Tao markings several inches around him. The Tao markings floated up and down, as if they were attracting all kinds of source energy between heaven and earth. In an instant, Long Chen's body was filled with holy light, and the brilliance was like a surging tide that washed over his corporeal body and tempered his god. The remnant soul of the Emperor nodded slightly and said, "This Source Soul body is formed from the source energy of all living things when it was born. It is enough to stabilize your spiritual pedestal and raise it to level 8 of the martial Emperor realm." In Long Chen's divine soul, the Dragon Palace floated up and down continuously, as if it had formed a realm of its own. The dazzling light of the Dragon Palace turned into a downpour and poured down. Thunder rumbled in the downpour, and when it landed on the Dragon Palace, it instantly dissipated. The rainwater entered the Dragon Palace, and the Dragon Palace that had been floating in Long Chen's divine soul started to move for the first time. Tao markings started to condense at the foundation, and it completely merged with Long Chen's divine soul. The Tao markings undulated, and the Dragon Palace was rooted. An ancient and desolate aura spread out in all directions. In Long Chen's divine soul, thousands of visions rose above the Dragon Palace. The dragon rose from the abyss, the phoenix danced in the 9 heavens, the black tortoise prostrated. Long Chen opened his eyes, and the demonic aura in his eyes started to turn dark gold. At this moment, he felt an unprecedented solidification of the God realm. The Source Soul body spun in front of Longchen, and the colorful lights on it turned into silk threads that flowed into Longchen's body, thinning out at a speed visible to the naked eye. Outside the Source Soul land. In just 10 days, the water beast god race in the War Kingdom had fought more than 10 times. Every time, there was a crowned martial monarch realm expert, and the scene was very grand. Mountains and rivers within 100,000 miles were overturned. Many fortunes were destroyed in a day. The various forces started to retreat from the Source Soul land, and they could already smell the uneasiness in the air. Jean Lanua donned her battle armor and stood in front of the many experts. She said coldly, 30,000 miles to the northwest, a rank 9 source beast has been born. There are 3 beast spirit 7 flower divine herbs in its cave dwelling. We must take it down. But if we meet anyone from the water beast god race, kill them without mercy. 30,000 miles to the northwest. It was not far from where Jean Lanua and the others were, but it took 7 to 8 days. In these 7 to 8 days, they fought with the water beast god race non-stop. Shui Tianmu fought with Jean Lanua for 3 days, and no one knew the result. But on the 10th day, Shui Tianmu left with the 3 7 flower divine herbs, and a few War Kingdom cultivators were captured and hung on the city wall. When the War Kingdom cultivators were hung on the city wall, everyone knew that a great battle was unavoidable. It was impossible for this battle to end hastily. The most puzzling thing was actually Mo Manua. As the eldest son of the Mo Gong god race, Mo Manua was famous and many people recognized him. However, after so many days, not a single member of the Mo family had appeared. This was truly inconceivable. After the battle with the 7 flower divine herbs, the entire Source Soul land seemed to have calmed down. Some speculated that Jean Lanua was heavily injured and was recuperating. Others said that the War Kingdom had started to mobilize a large number of crowned martial monarchs. In a mountain range, the War Kingdom cultivators gathered. A young man appeared outside the mountain range and walked straight into the mountain range. "Who's here? State your name." Just as Longchen walked into the mountain range, 3 crowned martial monarchs flew into the sky and stared at Longchen cautiously. But when the 3 of them saw that Longchen was only a level 3 martial monarch, they frowned and dispersed their auras. One of them recognized Longchen and said, "Quick, report to Lady Lanua, the guest elder she is looking for is here." "Guest elder? Is this level 3 martial monarch really a guest elder? After so many days of fighting, is it because of this guy?" Chapter 789. When Longchen entered the mountain range, he saw that the Battle Kingdom cultivators were all on high alert. When he reached the place where Jean Lanua was, he was surrounded by many imperial emperors. One of the imperial emperors stepped forward and frowned. He stopped a few people and said, "Lady Lanua is severely injured now, if you touch her origin." Before he finished, Jean Lanua's voice could be heard from a wooden house that was protected by many people. "Let him in, I have something to discuss with him." The imperial emperors' faces were ugly, but they quickly stepped back and signaled for Longchen to continue. Longchen disappeared from the wooden house. The imperial emperors whispered, "A level 3 imperial emperor walking so close to Lady Lanua, the person who came to help is Jean Sun. Now that Lady Lanua is severely injured, it's hard to say if she can protect him. Jean Sun's actions these days are a little too much. Although he did it secretly, it's too sensitive now." The imperial emperors whispered and shook their heads. They did not care about Longchen anymore. To them, Longchen was just an ordinary level 3 imperial emperor. His strength was not enough for them to put him in their eyes. In the wooden house, Jean Lanua was behind a green bird screen. Other than the silhouette of her curvaceous body, one could not see her face. "I didn't expect you to still be alive. This is truly out of my expectations." Her voice was very weak, like a willow that had just shed its roots. Longchen sat cross-legged beside the screen and smiled, "I won't die so easily. At least, I won't be killed by a dead fish. But talking through the screen makes me feel like I'm facing the wall." Pfft. When Jean Lanua heard Longchen comparing Shui Tianmu to a dead fish, she could not help but laugh. A ray of light flashed, and the screen between the two of them disappeared without a trace. Jean Lanua's face appeared in front of Long Chen. A unique fragrance of a woman wafted over. Their eyes met. Jean Lanua stared at Long Chen and said, "How is it?" "If you don't want to see, I can still cover the screen." Long Chen froze on the spot. On Jean Lanua's fair and flawless face, there was a bloodstain that went all the way to her collarbone. The bloodstain on her snow-white skin was truly dazzling. Not only that. If one looked carefully, they would discover that under her snow-white skin, there were streaks of tricolored brilliance rising and falling one after another, as if they were about to break out of her body. A moment later, Long Chen's eyes twitched. He stood up and walked in front of Jean Lanua and grabbed her arm. Jean Lanua's face turned gloomy and the aura around her increased tremendously. Countless rays of light rushed towards Long Chen. Concealing one's spirit and chi, the origin of the purple sea, born from blood. Just as her attack was about to land, she heard Long Chen's words. Not only that. Long Chen's right hand, which was grabbing her, emitted streams of terrifying origin energy that rushed into her meridians. Rumble. A thunderous sound reverberated in Jean Lanua's body. Her skin that was soaked in blood turned blood red in an instant. There were also countless amounts of hot air rising from her body. Puff! Puff! The rays of light that were rushing towards Long Chen were instantly shattered. Jean Lanua's aura did not decrease but increased instead. It was as if the person in front of Long Chen was not a weak girl, but an ancient giant beast. Jean Lanua's eyes were burning like a ball of fire. It was actually blood red. She stared at Long Chen, her mind seemed to be filled with spring thunder. She stared at Long Chen in shock. At this moment, she felt that the entire ancient sacred divine world was like a blood-red flower that was slowly unfolding in front of her. That was the opportunity to step into the Imperial Emperor realm. Streaks of blood-red flames rose up instantly. Long Chen let go of Jean Lanua's arm and retreated quickly. His face turned red and he quickly turned his body sideways. The screen at the side separated the two of them. The flames just now actually burned off Jean Lanua's clothes. Long Chen said awkwardly, "A few days ago, your blood-bathed god race's origin energy had already reverted to its ancestor. You should only have a 1 in 100 chance to step into the Imperial Emperor realm. Now that you have fought Shui Tianmu, you are severely injured. The origin energy did not dissipate, causing your physical body to be unable to recover. However, it also allowed your blood-bathed god race's origin energy to recover. If you go into seclusion now, you will have a 20% chance to step into the Imperial Emperor realm." Long Chen's words made Jean Lanua's heart tremble. She had been looking for Long Chen because she wanted to repay Long Chen for helping her revert to her ancestor. However, she did not expect that Long Chen would actually give her the opportunity to step into the Imperial Emperor realm. Concealment of one's spirit, birth from the purple sea, birth from blood. Long Chen's short words were like the sound of the great Tao in Jean Lanua's ears, giving her hope to step into the Imperial Emperor realm. The Imperial Emperor's remnant soul's voice rang in Long Chen's ears with a hint of mockery. "This girl's perception is not low. I'm afraid that she has also sensed that Shui Tianmu's attack was not right, but she could not understand it. Now, with just a few pointers, she might be able to become an Imperial Emperor. However, it is still too early for her to be crowned. Even if she becomes an Imperial Emperor, her achievements will be limited. Why don't you take her down now and I will teach you the art of yin-yang harmony. Not only will she be able to step into the Imperial Emperor realm, you might be able to do the same. When the time comes, I can even try to crown the two of you together. The success rate should be extremely high." Long Chen froze on the spot when he heard that. He could not help but feel hot all over. Then, he shook his head fiercely and said, "Master, it seems like you were a playboy in your previous life. You have dabbled in all kinds of techniques. However, she and I are just ordinary friends. How can we practice the dual cultivation technique? So what if you are friends? If you are a woman, just take her down and use force. Even if she is unwilling, so what? You can keep her by your side for more than 10 years. If not, then 100 years. If not, then 1,000 years. She will definitely be loyal to you. For a moment, Longchen was speechless. The corner of his mouth twitched and he asked with his divine sense, how many women did Master have when he was alive? Did you really succeed with this method? I have not counted the number of women. However, there should be around 10,000 years. Now, they should still be alive. They can be considered as your master's wives. When the time comes, you might be able to meet them. Longchen was completely speechless at this moment. He did not know whether to laugh or cry when he thought of the countless number of wives he had. He quickly changed the topic and said, now, let's think of a way to save Emmanuel and the others. It is also a good opportunity to test my combat strength. As his divine sense landed, Longchen also opened his mouth and said to Jean Lanua, you are in seclusion now. I hope that you can let me lead the people of the Battle Kingdom. Chapter 790. Jean Lanua Sword Longchen seemed to have a well-thought-out plan. After pondering for a moment, he nodded and chose to go into seclusion. Before he went into seclusion, Jean Lanua's voice could be heard from the wooden house, reaching the ears of everyone from the Battle Kingdom who followed her. In an instant, the entire mountain was filled with exclamations. Every great emperor had a strange expression on their face. They looked at each other in shock. What? She wants us to listen to Longchen's orders. Anyone who disobeys will be killed. Who is Longchen? Why have I never heard of his name before? Third-level Great Emperor. Are you kidding me? What can a third-level Great Emperor bring us to do? When Longchen walked out of the house, he was stopped by more than 10 crowned Great Emperors from all directions. These people were all late Great Emperors who were crowned Great Emperors. They were extremely strong and there were at least 2 Sea of Will behind them. The Sea of Will was the manifestation of a Great Emperor's potential. The more Sea of Will one had, the easier it would be for them to become Great Emperors in the future. You are Longchen? What did you say to Lady Lanue? Why would she give you the command? The person who spoke was a young man. Before he could finish his sentence, a middle-aged man reached out and stopped him. This person stared at Longchen and took a deep breath. His tone was much better as he said, although you are a guest elder personally selected by Lady Lanua, we still hope that you can leave this place as soon as possible. We are more than enough to deal with the Soul Source Land. Everyone's eyes were filled with disdain, and many of them were furious. None of them were weak. They were all martial emperors under Imperial Emperor Zhang Kuang. But now, they had to listen to a third-level martial emperor. It was an insult to them. Moreover, Longchen was not from the Zhang clan and was not crowned by Zhang Tianquan. Although this person spoke politely, his meaning was clear. They did not dare to disobey Zhang Lanua's orders, but they wanted Longchen to back off. From the moment this order was given, none of them wanted to obey. Longchen's expression didn't change as he watched more and more great emperors gather around him. He was already prepared for such a scene. After pondering for a moment, he said to everyone in a deep voice, in the last battle, the water beast gods won a complete victory. Many of your companions in the Warring States Kingdom were captured, right? Longchen's voice had just sounded when the surrounding people were startled. Soon after, their anger soared to the heavens. Since the last battle between Lan Yu and Shui Tianmu, many people from the Warring States Kingdom were captured. These people were now no different from Mo Manu, all of them hung on the city walls. It was precisely because of this action that the people of the Warring States Kingdom were enraged, and war was about to break out. Longchen's words were no different from adding oil to the fire. Brat, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. You're just a third-level spirit emperor. You should know your limits. The leader of the group couldn't help but reprimand him. The surrounding people also stepped forward, their faces full of disdain. Longchen shook his head and said, "Are you all going to defy Lady Lanu's orders and betray the Warring States Kingdom? Everyone's expression changed and they stopped in their tracks. However, everyone's gaze towards Longchen became even more gloomy. The leader of the group, a middle-aged man, said coldly, "Brat, be careful of your words. We've all been crowned as Imperial Emperor Zhang Kuang's subordinates. We won't betray him. If you insist on taking orders, we'll listen. However, if you lose your life, don't blame us." The middle-aged man's cultivation was at the peak of the Emperor realm. He had 3 seas of reincarnation behind him. When the people behind him heard this, they couldn't be bothered to argue with Longchen. They just thought that Longchen was an arrogant and ignorant person. Longchen was indifferent to the disdainful gazes of the crowd. He looked at the crowd and said, "Tomorrow, pick 20 late-stage spirit emperors and follow me to Ruoshui City to rescue people." Everyone looked at each other. The middle-aged man couldn't help but twitch his eyes and said, "How do you plan to rescue people? Shui Tianmu's battle strength can't even defeat Lady Lan Yu. The Warring States Kingdom's army will take at least 10 days to arrive here. What can you do with 20 people?" Longchen didn't explain. He just said to the crowd, "Since you're all here today, and you're all crowned, follow me to Ruoshui City tomorrow." After that, Longchen turned around and left, leaving the Emperor Realm cultivators looking at each other. After a while, many of them asked, "What is Lady Lan Yu thinking? Why did she go into seclusion and leave us in the hands of such a person? Are we really going to listen to him? If we really go to Ruoshui City tomorrow, a few more people will die." The middle-aged man raised his arm and waved it down. When the crowd quieted down, he said, "Since this person doesn't know when to back down, we can only play along with him. When the time comes, we'll just have to save our own lives." Although the crowd was unhappy, they could only nod in agreement. After all, they were crowned by Zhan Tianquan. Now that Zhan Lanyu ordered them to do so, they wouldn't dare to disobey. The sky gradually darkened. Longchen left the place where the Warring States Kingdom cultivators were and landed in a valley a few thousand meters away. In front of him, there was an 8th-order demonic beast with half of its body destroyed and its soul completely dissipated. It couldn't be more dead. Longchen stood in front of the beast. The Sovereign Lord's soul murmured, "Now that the Dragon Palace has completely merged with your soul, the strength of your body has increased by several times. With the strength of an 8th-order Spirit Emperor, you're no weaker than some great perfection divine race cultivators. However, it's still unknown whether you can win against Shui Tianmu or Zhan Lanyue. Both of them are great perfection divine emperors. If they're lucky enough, they'll have the chance to step into the Imperial Emperor realm. Plus, they've already been crowned and opened their sea of reincarnation." The Sovereign Lord Soul's words made Longchen clench his fist. He replied, "Even if he's only an 8th-order Spirit Emperor, if I also open my sea of reincarnation, Shui Tianmu might be able to win." After that, Longchen once again ran towards the mountain range. It wasn't until the next morning that he returned to where Zhan Lanyue and the others were. He had killed quite a number of Genesis beasts that night, including a grade 9 Genesis beast. When the late divine emperors who had been crowned saw Longchen coming, their eyes were filled with provocation. Longchen looked at everyone's appearance and did not say much. He only said indifferently, "Let's go. Head to Ruoshui City." Chapter 791. On the city wall of Ruoshui City. Fresh blood poured down like rain, staining the greenish-brown stones red. Following the bloodstains, one could see more than 10 people hanging on the city wall with their chests pierced through by iron spears. They were all in the Great Emperor realm, and as long as their god source was not destroyed, their flesh and blood could be regenerated. However, after so many days of being hacked into pieces, they had suffered all kinds of torture. A few of the Great Emperor realm experts who followed Zhan Lanyue couldn't stand the torture and killed themselves. On the other hand, Mo Manua gritted his teeth and persevered for so many days. These Great Emperor realm experts gave him hope of leaving this place. The Mo Gong clan had obviously given up on him and was unwilling to fight with the Water Beast clan. But the great Emperor realm experts wouldn't take this lying down. As long as they saved this group of people, he would have a chance to be saved. The sun was high in the sky. When Long Chen and the others appeared in front of Ruoshui City, Mo Manua was stunned. Although he expected the great Emperor realm experts to come, he didn't expect Long Chen to lead the team and only 20 people. The 20 people stood in front of the city without any concealment. In less than 10 breaths of time, the city was filled with people and the leader was Shui Tianmu. Shui Tianmu stood on the city wall. His eyes immediately fell on Long Chen. Soon after, the coldness in his eyes intensified. He stared at Long Chen and glanced at the great Emperor realm experts behind Long Chen. He sneered, "I didn't expect you to dare to come here. Do you think the great Emperor realm experts can protect you?" The great Emperor realm experts' faces turned purple and they snorted coldly. Only Long Chen took a step forward and said, "I'm here to save people. I don't need others to protect me." Save people? Many members of the Water Beast clan behind Shui Tianmu had strange expressions on their faces when they heard this. Save people? You? A great perfection great Emperor realm expert sneered. A great perfection great Emperor realm expert dares to speak so arrogantly. What a joke. Hurry up and hand over the heavenly water pearl, or you'll be the next one to be hung on the city wall. Why are you still talking nonsense with him? Since he's courting death, let's just take him down. The Water Beast God Clan's members laughed maniacally. A 7th-level Great Emperor leaped down from the sky and a 100-meter-long spear shot towards Long Chen. If it wasn't for the fact that he was wary of the 20 Great Emperors behind Long Chen, he would have already charged forward. The long spear was like a dragon. The multicolored light surrounding the spear technique spiraled endlessly, as if it wanted to directly mince Long Chen into pieces. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the people behind Long Chen all sneered and took a few steps back. Someone even whispered, "Wasn't he arrogant? Now that he's dead, he can't blame us." Bang! As soon as this person's voice fell, a rumbling sound was heard, causing the air in all directions to tremble. Everyone turned to look at the source of the sound, only to see Long Chen shatter the 1,000-feet-long spear with a single blow. A fist shadow tore through the air like a golden flame. Ah! Shrill screams immediately rang out, and everyone's gazes turned to look at the person under the raging flames. This person was the one who had just attacked Long Chen. Now, more than half of his body had been destroyed. Isn't this guy a 3rd-level Great Emperor? How could he shatter a 7th-level Great Emperor's attack with a single punch? And his body was almost destroyed. This kid has some strength. It seems that the survivors who participated in the Soul Source battle were right. This person has a special technique to hide his strength. So what? Do you really think that he can save these people from Shui Tianmu? He's just a brute. The 20 great emperors of the Sengoku clan glanced at Long Chen. Although they were slightly shocked, they still felt that he was courting death today. Shui Tianmu was able to injure Zhan Lanhua. His cultivation was clearly not weak. Even if Long Chen was hiding his strength, it was impossible for him to defeat Shui Tianmu. At least, Long Chen had not been crowned yet. Shui Tianmu frowned slightly. Water ripples appeared on his right hand. With a flick of his finger, all the flames on this person's body were covered. He stared at Long Chen and said lightly, "I didn't expect you to have completely digested the Soul Source body in such a short time. Your cultivation has improved so much." Shui Tianmu paused and said, "I want to see how you can save these people from my hands today. The 20 people behind you are not enough." His voice was very playful and even a little arrogant. In his eyes, Long Chen was already a dead man. But he liked the feeling of playing with him, so he was not in a hurry. Long Chen looked at the 20 people behind him, shook his head and said, 20 people are enough. At least they can take these people away from here. But today, I want to exchange a few moves with you. After that." Everyone was in an uproar. Long Chen actually wanted to fight with Shui Tianmu. Even the 20-odd people behind Long Chen were stunned. Although they had already made preparations to let Long Chen do as he pleased, they were still unable to do anything. But they never thought that Longchen would seek death and fight with Shui Tianmu. Zhan Lanue was a great perfection martial emperor and had 4 wheels in her sea of reincarnation during her coronation. Even she had lost to Shui Tianmu. So what if Longchen, who had yet to be crowned, had reached the peak of the emperor realm? How could he be a match for Shui Tianmu? The people behind Shui Tianmu looked at each other and then burst into laughter. Did you hear that? This guy wants to challenge young master Shui Tianmu. Hiding his cultivation? So what if you are a great perfection martial emperor? You don't need young master Shui Tianmu to fight with you. You overestimate yourself. You think you can't be killed with 20 people from the Battle Kingdom? What a joke. Hearing the mocking laughter, Shui Tianmu's face became even more playful. He waved his hand slightly and the people around him quieted down. Then he looked at Longchen and said, "Interesting. So what if I let you have 3 moves? Let's see what you can do today." Longchen transmitted his message to the 20 people behind him, making them speechless and treating it as a joke. But Longchen had already walked forward and arrived at the city wall. The great emperor's remnant soul's voice rang in Longchen's ears, "This guy's talent is not bad. In fact, he has 6 sea of reincarnation and he had 2, with this strength, defeating Zhan Lanue is nothing. If you want to defeat him, it's best to wait until after your coronation." Chapter 792. Longchen looked at Shui Tianmu with a serious expression. Shui Tianmu was able to defeat Zhan Lanue. Although Longchen had reached the 8th level of the martial emperor realm, he was still a far cry from Shui Tianmu. Most importantly, Longchen had not been crowned and had not opened his sea of reincarnation. As long as he opened his sea of reincarnation, Longchen was confident that he could fight against Shui Tianmu. But that day was definitely not today. Today, he was going to save Emmanuel and the people from the warring state's kingdom. Longchen stood below the city wall. Shui Tianmu did not even walk down the wall. He just leaped up and stood on top of the wall. He looked down at Longchen and said, "I'll give you 3 chances to attack. After 3 moves, I'll destroy your body and take your soul and brand it on the wall." The people from the Water Beast clan sneered. Everyone could see that Shui Tianmu wanted to humiliate Longchen with these 3 moves. Otherwise, he could easily take down Longchen. Longchen turned a blind eye to everyone's stares. He leaped 100 meters and threw a punch at Shui Tianmu. Seeing this, Shui Tianmu couldn't help but snort in disdain. He threw a punch straight at him. The image of a divine dragon rose and fell on Longchen's right arm. It looked like a huge dragon was circling around his arm. The multicolored light extended endlessly. Rumble. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the 2 of them threw a punch at each other. The multicolored light dispersed in all directions from the place where the 2 fists collided, and a series of rumbling sounds could be heard incessantly. Ka ka ka. When the rays of light dissipated, everyone looked at the city wall. Longchen and Shui Tianmu's fists were still colliding. However, the city wall under their feet began to crack at a speed visible to the naked eye. The inscriptions on the city wall flashed and stopped the cracks. Everyone's expression changed. No one expected Longchen's punch to be so powerful. Shui Tianmu also frowned slightly. His feet were almost stuck in the huge rocks of the city wall. The warring states people also looked at each other and secretly thought that Longchen really had some strength. For a person who had yet to be crowned to have such combat strength, it was still not bad. You do have some strength, but that's all there is to it. Shui Tianmu snorted and swung his fist, trying to push Longchen back. Longchen sneered. His whole body emitted an oppressive aura. In an instant, his aura reached its peak. Fist shadows filled the sky as if tens of thousands of dragon shadows were rushing out from the void. Their cries were incessant, like the roar of the Great Path, drawing on the original fate of the Great Path. Rumble. On the city wall, the Water Beast God Clan members' expressions changed, and they shot up into the sky. Shui Tianmu was the first to bear the brunt of the fist shadows. His eyes had completely changed color at this moment. A water curtain instantly turned into a tsunami that soared into the 9 heavens. 2 divine rivers flowed downwards, and there seemed to be deities manifesting above them. This time, everyone was completely stunned. No one thought that the battle between Longchen and Shui Tianmu could be so powerful. The situation that should have been one-sided did not happen. This made the warring states people for the first time start to seriously wait for Longchen's voice transmission before he attacked. The divine rivers and the dragon shadows converged. A dazzling brilliance fell from the sky like flowing rainbows. It was extremely beautiful. The city under Shui Tianmu's feet was turned into powder. He looked at Longchen with a gloomy look, and he was no longer as calm as he had been when he punched Longchen. "Your Excellency, do you still want to give me 3 moves? I'm afraid that if I continue, your city will be destroyed." Longchen stared at Shui Tianmu and said in a deep voice. Shui Tianmu's right hand moved in the air, and 2 divine rivers appeared from the left and right. It was extremely terrifying. The divine rivers surged. Shui Tianmu grabbed the air and turned into 2 spears. The tip of the spears was where Longchen was. He snorted and said, "I wanted to play with you. Now it seems that you'd better die peacefully." The 2 spears broke through the air, and wherever they passed, a tsunami rose into the sky. Longchen saw this and his face was full of seriousness. The Emperor's remnant soul in his mind said bluntly, "Do it. Save him. If you can be crowned, then come back and fight with this person. Otherwise, even if you win today, I'm afraid that no one here will be able to survive." Longchen nodded. Although his heart was full of fighting spirit, he knew that the Emperor's remnant soul was not lying. Shui Tianmu's strength was really terrifying. Today's test was enough. Longchen suddenly waved his right hand when he saw the 2 spears formed by the divine river flying toward him. The origin energy on them revealed a terrifying aura. The heavenly water pearl appeared in front of Longchen and kept spinning. The moment the heavenly water pearl appeared, Longchen's right hand turned into a phantom and kept falling in the air. Inscriptions of water quickly fell into the heavenly water pearl. The heavenly water pearl kept spinning, and streaks of water rushed into the sky. A tsunami of tens of thousands of feet rushed past. "Save him!" Longchen roared, and the warring states people who had already descended behind him suddenly quivered, and immediately broke through the air and rushed towards the city wall. On the other side, Shui Tianmu and the other Water Beast clan people's faces changed drastically. They were all stunned. "Heavenly Water Pearl, you are not a member of the Water Beast clan. How can you use the Heavenly Water Pearl?" The Heavenly Water Pearl's power has been pushed to the extreme. If this continues, the entire Ruoshui city will be destroyed. The Heavenly Water Pearl has been sealed by my clan. Without the origin of the Water Beast clan, it can't be opened. How can this person use it? Exclamations of surprise were incessant. The tsunami in the sky poured down. Even Shui Tianmu's attack was drowned in it. His face was already ashen. The pouring tsunami connected with the sky, and in the blink of an eye, it had fallen on the city. Puff puff puff. The Water Beast clan people rushed to the sky one by one, trying to block the Heavenly Water Pearl's power outside the city, but each of them kept vomiting blood. The power of the Heavenly Water Pearl was even stronger than when it captured the origin spirit. Shui Tianmu's body was like a tide of water, a ray of brilliance almost condensed. His whole body rushed to the sky, and the mighty power of the Heavenly Water Pearl was slightly reduced. On the other side, all the people on the city wall had been taken away by the warring states' kingdom people. Each of them was not weak, and in the blink of an eye, they disappeared in front of everyone. The voice of the Emperor Lord's remnant soul suddenly appeared, and said to Longchen, "Don't panic, destroy the 2 rank 9 beast souls behind the city wall." Longchen raised his eyebrows, and his eyes flashed. Just now, he saw that the inscription array in the northwest of the city wall had locked up 2 rank 9 monster beast souls. Longchen's whole body swept across the sky, his body turned, and directly blasted a hole in the inscription array. The 2 beast souls roared, but they were extremely weak. 2 7-flower divine herbs. Long Chen's face was full of excitement. Long Chen took the 7-flower divine herbs and flew away. Shui Tianmu in the distance noticed it, but the next moment he was so angry that he vomited blood. Chapter 793. Ruoshui City was flooded and the 7-flower godly herb was taken away. Long Chen's fame was unparalleled in the land of source souls. When they returned to Zhan Lanyua's stronghold, the 20 people who followed Long Chen looked at each other awkwardly. Before they left, they even thought of letting Long Chen die in Ruoshui City. But now, with Long Chen's help, they managed to save everyone from the Battle Kingdom from the city wall. These people had a good relationship with them and some of them were as close as brothers. A few of them looked at each other and walked towards Long Chen. Especially those who were saved from the city wall, they immediately bowed to him. "Thank you for saving us today. If you need our help in the future, we will do our best." The leader bowed and shouted. After so many days of torture, they almost broke down mentally. Long Chen's help was equivalent to giving them a new lease of life. "Brother Long Chen, we were stupid for the past 2 days. We are all in the Battle Kingdom. If you need our help, just say it." The 20 people's faces were a little green and red. They felt guilty when they thought of their attitude towards Long Chen 2 days ago. Long Chen waved his hand, indicating that they did not need to be so polite. He smiled and said, "I did gain something from this trip. Brothers, you don't have to be so polite. Miss Lanyua is in seclusion and can't move. Shui Tianmu will definitely take revenge. It's better to be careful." Everyone nodded their heads solemnly, deeply agreeing with him. Now that the water beast god race and the Battle Kingdom were like fire and water, they had to be careful. "We will go and contact the Battle Kingdom and ask them to hurry over," the leader said. Although they knew that Long Chen had 2 7-flower godly herbs, they did not mention it. In their opinion, the 2 godly herbs should belong to Long Chen. If word got out, it would cause unnecessary trouble for Long Chen. Long Chen was quite satisfied with the change in attitude of the people. He nodded and signaled them to get back to work. He did not interfere with what these people were going to do next. The reason why he asked Zhan Lanyua for the management rights was to save the people on the city wall. Of course, this included Mo Manua. Mo Manua followed Long Chen and left the stronghold. Mo Manua couldn't understand. At this moment, Shui Tianmu and the Shui Shou clan's people must have gone crazy, so the stronghold was the safest place. However, he did not ask Long Chen for his opinion. After all, it was Long Chen who had saved him from the city wall. The two of them traveled for an entire day and night, neither sleeping nor resting. After going deep into the forest, Long Chen opened up a cave that was more than 10 meters wide. Long Chen's actions made Mo Manua even more suspicious. She didn't know why Long Chen was being so careful. Along the way, they had avoided almost all human habitation, so there was no need to open up a cave in the belly of the mountain. While Mo Manua was puzzled, Long Chen finally spoke. He looked at Mo Manua and said in a deep voice, "You and I know each other. You wanted to kill me and many of my companions died in your hands. Whatever you've been through these past few days, regardless of whether it's out of your own conscience, it's all because of me. If you don't die today, all our grievances will be written off." When Mo Manua heard Long Chen's words, she subconsciously took a few steps back and distanced herself from him. The muscles on her face stiffened as she said in a deep voice, "You can say whatever you want. As long as you don't kill me, I'll agree to everything." Mo Manua's heart was filled with uneasiness. He didn't want to die. Even if he had to bow and scrape in front of Long Chen, he didn't want to die an unnatural death. He was afraid of death and was even more afraid of dying in the land of the Source Spirit in front of the Mo clan. "I want to help you to be crowned, but it's still unknown whether it will succeed or not," Long Chen replied. The moment he said that, Mo Manua's entire body froze. Immediately, the gloominess on her face disappeared and was replaced by an unprecedented look of shock. She lost her voice and said, "You said you want to crown me? You're not an emperor, How can you crown me? Longchen didn't have the intention to explain and said in a deep voice, I've never crowned anyone before. I don't know if this will be a misfortune or good fortune for you. Mo Manuel looked at Longchen's solemn expression and knew that he wasn't lying. He really could crown him. Mo Manuel's body suddenly trembled. He panted heavily and his eyes were even a little red as he said, Crown, you can really crown me? Although Mo Manuel was afraid of death, he wanted to be crowned more. Emperor Mo Gong was his father. His father had crowned him 3 times, but all of them ended in failure. Now that he was trapped in the land of the Source Spirit and almost died, no one from the Mo clan appeared. Outsiders couldn't understand the bitterness of it. Longchen looked at Mo Manuel and frowned. He replied again, I can indeed try to crown you, but it's not foolproof. There are many dangers in it. I agree. If you really have the power to crown me, it's worth the risk. Mo Manuel stared at Longchen. Longchen shook his head and laughed. It seemed like Mo Manuel wasn't only afraid of death, he was even more afraid of being looked down upon by others, especially his father and clansmen. The Emperor's remnant soul seemed to be a little impatient as he said to Longchen, since he has already acknowledged you as his master, what's the point of saying so much to him? An Emperor realm cultivator who can't even be considered as part of the Earth Source God race. Even if he dies under my coronation, it's his honor. Longchen smiled bitterly and nodded. He couldn't help but wonder what Mo Manuel's expression would be if he knew that the person who crowned him was the Emperor of Ancient Saint. Emperor of Ancient Saint. According to the coronation iron rules of the Ancient Saint God world, only God Emperors could be crowned by him. They were people who could make the entire Ancient Saint God world tremble with a stomp of their feet. Give him a portion of the 7-flower godly herb and teach him a breathing technique. Let him quickly recover to his peak state. I will also try to change the coronation rules for him. The Emperor's remnant soul said to Longchen. The Emperor's remnant soul didn't care about Mo Manuel's life. Instead, he wanted to prepare for Longchen's coronation. For the next 3 days, Mo Manuel didn't sleep or rest. Under Longchen's guidance, his cultivation level rapidly recovered to the great circle of the Emperor realm. The side effects of forcefully consuming the godly herb also disappeared. The breathing technique that Longchen taught him made him look like a god. Now, he looked at Longchen with reverence. In his heart, he even treated Longchen as a reclusive or wandering Emperor realm cultivator. Even if an Emperor realm cultivator lost his cultivation, he still had the power to be crowned. Longchen's battle strength was extraordinary. If he could really be crowned, there could only be one reason. He was once an Emperor realm cultivator. Longchen naturally sensed Mo Manuel's thoughts, but he didn't point it out. Chapter 794. Ruoshui City. Shui Tianmu was in the main hall and the people around him were all silent. He never thought that Longchen would be able to discover the 7-flower divine herb in the array core before he left. Now, he had to spit out the blood he was holding in his heart. Originally, he could attempt to break through to the Imperial Emperor realm after he obtained the Origin Soul, but Longchen took away his Origin Soul. Then, he fought Zhan Lanhua with Sengoku and lost 3 7-flower divine herbs. Although the 7-flower divine herb was not as effective as the Origin Soul, it was still possible for him to break through to the Imperial Emperor realm. However, 2 of the 3 7-flower divine herbs were not ripe yet and he had to use the array core in the city to nourish them. Now, it was taken away by Longchen. Young Master Tianmu, there is only 1 7-flower divine herb left. Can we find another herb to replace it? An old man asked timidly. Shui Tianmu's eyes flashed coldly and he said coldly, if any divine herb can help me become an Imperial Emperor, why would I come to the land of Origin Soul? That 7-flower divine herb is born from the Origin Soul and its grade is not bad. That is why it can replace the body of a vengeful spirit. Where else can we find more divine herbs above the 7-flower divine herb in the land of Origin Soul? Everyone could see the anger in Shui Tianmu's eyes and no one dared to provoke him. Many of them were even more uneasy. The reason why they followed Shui Tianmu and even ignored the orders of the Aqua Beast God clan to fight against the Sengoku Empire was so that Shui Tianmu could ascend to the throne. As long as Shui Tianmu could become an imperial emperor, he would have done more good than wrong. If he did not become an imperial emperor and provoked Sengoku and the water beast celestial race, the consequences would be unimaginable. At least, other than Shui Tianmu, no one else would be able to keep their lives. It has been 5 days. Have you found where Zhang Lanhua and the others are? Even if I have to kill Zhang Lanhua, I will take back the divine herb and kill Long Chen. Shui Tianmu's face was contorted in anger. Everyone looked at each other but no one dared to answer. After a while, the old man who was the leader spoke on behalf of everyone. We have found where Zhang Lanhua and the others are, but Zhang Sun and the others have led 3,000 men to the land of origin Seoul. Crack crack. The water vapor around Shui Tianmu's body was like a knife, cutting the walls in all directions. Zhang Sun was one of the 9 great emperors under Zhang Tianquang. His cultivation base had long reached the great circle of the emperor realm. Shui Tianmu might be a great perfection emperor, but there was no way he could win against such an old general. This difference was like the difference between him and the group of elders beneath him. They were all great emperors, but the number of Sea of Reincarnation and the origin of the god race determined their battle prowess. Among all the people present, the most they had was 2 Sea of Reincarnation, which meant that even if they worked together, they wouldn't be able to defeat Shui Tianmu. Since Zhang Sun was able to become one of the 9 great emperors of the Warring States period, he had at least 3 Seas of Reincarnation. Moreover, he had already reached the great circle of the emperor realm. His origin energy was probably several times denser than Shui Tianmu's. If everyone's cultivation was compared to a lake, the coronation was like throwing a sea-stabilizing divine needle into the lake. Not only could the needle overturn the clouds and rain, it could also make the entire lake impregnable. Without the needle, no matter how vast the lake was, it would never be able to transform into an ocean. It would just be a pool of stagnant water. If the lake water of an ordinary person was real lake water, then the lake of a genius like Shui Tianmu was made of refined iron. Although they were all of the same size, they had the power to destroy everything. Zhang Sun's cultivation base might be slightly weaker than Shui Tianmu's, but his lake was probably several times larger than Shui Tianmu's. The result of a fight between the two was obvious. At the very least, the current Shui Tianmu wouldn't dare to say that he could defeat Zhang Sun. Shui Tianmu raised an eyebrow in anger. He said, I remember that when I first came here, I heard that someone in the 9 treasures realm was willing to pay a high price for Long Chen's life. That person seems to be Zhang Sun. Everyone was stunned. During this time, they have been busy fighting against the people of the Warring States Kingdom and have already forgotten about this matter. 2 or 3 people present had heard about Zhang Sun's matter. The leader replied, Zhang Sun, on the other hand, is under the command of nearly 10 celestial emperors participating in the Origin Soul contest. According to the Dark Net, he is willing to use Zhang Tianquang's coronation to buy Long Chen's life, as well as more than 10 penta-divine herbs and various divine abilities. Zhang Sun once saved Zhang Tianquang's life. Zhang Tianquang promised him 3 unconditionally. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people trying to take Long Chen's life in this soul source contest. Shui Tianmu's eyes narrowed when he heard this. A cold light flashed in his eyes. A moment later, he raised his hand and called the old man in front of him. He said in a low voice, send a message to Zhang Sun through the Dark Net. Tell him to tell me where Long Chen is. I will personally kill this person for him and withdraw from the Soul Source contest to apologize to the Warring States Kingdom. The old man nodded his head in agreement. However, he still didn't believe it. He asked doubtfully, is Zhang Sun still willing to help my water beast god race? He isn't willing to help my water beast god race, but he is willing to help me get rid of Long Chen. On the other side. In front of Long Chen, Mo Manua's entire body was filled with terrifying runes. These runes were like countless rays of golden light surging towards the top of his head. When Mo Manua saw this, she couldn't help but get excited. She said, I finally have a chance. The power of my god realm and god altar has already started to form the sea of reincarnation. Once the sea of reincarnation is formed, I will be crowned as an imperial emperor. As long as my fortune is right, I might be able to become an imperial emperor. Manuel looked at Longchen excitedly. However, she suddenly stopped talking and quickly quietened down. Longchen's hands seemed to have some kind of Tao rhythm. They landed 3 inches above her head continuously. Every time they moved, Manuel's cultivation would solidify a little. During these few days, Manuel became more and more respectful towards Longchen. Ever since Longchen started to crown her, her entire temperament had undergone an earth-shaking change. Manuel didn't even dare to look at Longchen's eyes. When she tried to look at Longchen, her soul was almost set ablaze. At this moment, Longchen handed over the control of his body to the remnant soul of the Imperial Emperor. However, when he saw that the coronation was finally going to be successful, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. During these few days, the remnant soul of the Imperial Emperor had reduced the Tao runes 37 times. Every time, Manuel almost lost her life. Manuel probably didn't know that her life had already changed so many times in the hands of the remnant soul of the Imperial Emperor. Manuel was about to be crowned successfully. Chapter 795. One by one, figures set off from Jean Lanua's stronghold and flew in all directions. They were ordered by Jean Sun to search for Longchen. When a black glow came from a mountain in the distance, 2 of them looked at each other and left after leaving a mark. If these people were here for a few more hours, they would have found out that this black glow was one of the thousands of divine lights emitted by Manuel's coronation. Everyone from the Battle Kingdom stopped looking for Longchen. Many people from the Warring States period felt uneasy. A few days ago, Longchen had just helped them save their brothers, and now Jean Sun was going to attack Longchen. What should we do? Longchen brought us to save our brothers and vented our anger. I'm afraid he's in trouble now. Jean Sun's son was extremely arrogant. He died because of Longchen and was killed by Miss Jean Lanue. Now Jean Sun has placed all his hatred on Longchen. Miss Lanue is in seclusion and Jean Sun's status and strength are all in this place. We can't get involved in this mess, a few of them whispered to each other and shook their heads in the end. Facing Jean Sun, even if they wanted to help Longchen, they were powerless. What surprised them was that Jean Sun did not leave the stronghold in the next few days. It was as if he did not make any moves after knowing Longchen's whereabouts. On the other side, inside the mountain, Manuel knelt in front of Longchen and her eyes were filled with gratitude. Behind him were 3 illusory images of the Wheel Sea. Manuel, her father had crowned her thrice, but it ended in failure. She did not expect that she would be crowned by an Emperor Realm cultivator today. Of course, in her heart, Longchen must have fallen to the Emperor Realm for some reason. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to be crowned. Longchen gestured for Manuel to stand up. Looking at her eyes that were filled with gratitude, Longchen couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. Do you know how many times you almost stepped into the gates of hell these days? Manuel's eyes were filled with determination. Without even raising her head, she said, I don't need to know how many times I have stepped into the gates of hell. I only know that now that I have succeeded in my coronation, the entire Mogong clan will see hope in my future. Seeing how confident Manuel was, Longchen said, Let's go, the outermost restriction here has been stepped on by someone. I'm going to go into seclusion, protect me. Manuel nodded heavily and said in a deep voice, Now that I am in the great circle of the martial Emperor realm and have successfully been crowned, as long as I am far enough away, I can even stop Shui Tianmu for 10 days. Manuel's words were filled with confidence and Longchen did not think that she was boasting. The Mogong clan had a unique way of attacking and was almost invincible against those of the same cultivation level. Even though Shui Tianmu's battle prowess was extraordinary, Manuel had absolute confidence that she could stop him from attacking from a good position. After Longchen agreed, he smiled faintly and said, During this coronation, You almost lost your life 173 times, but I managed to pull you back. Manua's legs trembled and she almost fell to the ground. Although she was filled with confidence, she did not feel that the coronation this time was so terrifying. If Longchen did not tell her the exact number, she would not dare to believe it. Of course, the one who saved Manua was not Longchen, but the remnant soul of the emperor. Longchen even saw the remnant soul of the emperor carving Dao Law on his soul and then erasing it in order to figure out how to crown him. A centipede dies but never falls down. Longchen really understood this saying. As the person who was crowned, Manua did not know what the remnant soul of the emperor did. Longchen did not have the intention to point it out. Since Manua survived, it was fate that allowed her to do so. Although the remnant soul of the emperor saved him this time, he really did not care about his life. Longchen broke the restriction and flew into the sky again. Manua was in a daze for a while before she shook her head and thought, he must be lying to me. Although the coronation might fail, I have never heard of anyone dying. Soon after, he followed Longchen and left. It took them 3 days to find an ideal place to stop. This was a mountain range that spanned 30,000 miles. The mountain range was rugged with rocks and was high in the north and low in the south. In the northeast, there was a mountain peak that reached 10,000 meters in the sky. Standing on the peak of the northeast mountain, one could almost see the entire mountain range. Manua stood on the peak with a bow in her hand. She was in high spirits. She was in a good mood. She looked up and saw that Longchen was 20,000 meters away from her. It was an extremely low-lying valley. Inside the valley, there were inscriptions of array formations everywhere. Many divine lights were shining like rainbows. The remnant soul of the emperor said to Longchen, pass on another visualization technique to her. Otherwise, if she is interrupted and her life is in danger, the gains will not make up for the losses. Longchen nodded and agreed. Ever since Manua was crowned, Longchen no longer had any enmity towards him. All the things that happened in the past could be considered as offsetting. The remnant soul of the emperor imprinted the visualization technique into Longchen's soul. Longchen moved in front of Manua and said, today, I will pass on a visualization technique to you. After I go into seclusion, anyone who steps within 30,000 miles will be killed. No one. Manua heard this and nodded. Then, she suddenly reacted and said, you just said visualization technique? You really have a visualization technique that can be passed on. Longchen did not explain and directly imprinted a divine beast's soul into Manua's sea of consciousness. Manua froze on the spot and her eyes started to become blank. In her mind, there was a golden winged rock soaring. Golden light flowed on its wings like countless arrows. The countless wings gave off a terrifying sound of breaking through the air. The countless wings turned into arrows and flew in all directions. Wherever they passed, the sun would fall and the stars would collapse. The bow in Manua's hand started to tremble uncontrollably. Poochie. Manua actually spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked at Longchen with a bitter smile and said, my lord, I'm afraid I can't take this visualization technique. His tone was unprecedentedly respectful. He had completely submitted to Longchen. This rock was a god-race totem born from chaos. It was not something that he could visualize. If he were to look at it for another 2 to 3 breaths, his divine residence would be shattered. Longchen frowned and asked the remnant soul of the emperor in his mind, what visualization technique did you give him? Is it so terrifying? The remnant soul of the emperor snorted and said, it's just a beast. You just asked him to visualize one of its wings. What a good-for-nothing. If he were to visualize the Azure Void God totem, he would probably go crazy and die. Chapter 796. After explaining the limitations of Manua's visualization technique, Longchen returned to the depths of the inscriptions to prepare for seclusion. Manua also concealed her figure. In her mind, the wings of the rock were undulating, and rays of divine light covered the sky. It was rumored that there was only a broken visualization technique in the Black Bao Celestial clan. It only had 50% of the Taoist rhythm, and only the clan leader could cultivate it. Mo Manua only felt dizzy today. The visualization technique that Longchen gave her was actually a divine bird totem that was born from chaos. If she could successfully comprehend this totem, with the arrows in her hands, she would be able to fight against those above her level. If she reached the cultivation of an emperor in the future, she could even make the Black Bao Celestial clan a top force in the Nine Treasures realm. The inscriptions flickered, and rays of black light and divine light intersected at the place where Longchen was. In the blink of an eye, it turned into nothingness, as if the entire mountain had calmed down. The inscriptions of the array had completely covered Longchen's traces. But Mo Manua looked at Longchen in a daze. He clearly felt an opportunity to be crowned, and this feeling was no different from what he felt a few days ago. Naturally, he would not forget. Could it be that he has not been crowned? How is this possible? If he is not an emperor, how could he crown me? Could it be that this person did not need to be an emperor to be crowned in the emperor realm? Mo Manua was shocked. At this moment, there was only Longchen in the inscriptions of the array. The crowned person must be Longchen. But according to the indestructible rules of the ancient Saint Divine world, without the crowning of an emperor, one would never be able to step into the ranks of an emperor. He must have been seriously injured, and his cultivation fell from the emperor realm. Therefore, he could reconstruct the sea of reincarnation and crown himself. Mo Manua thought for a moment and shook her head fiercely. She looked at Longchen with more respect. Now, in her heart, Longchen was simply an opportunity given to her by the heavens. In the inscriptions of the array, it seemed calm, but in fact, it was turbulent. There seemed to be thousands of divine rivers surging inside the entire mountain, and countless Taoist rules were evolving. It was magnificent and brilliant. Longchen sat cross-legged, and his entire body was bathed in the light, as if the gods and Buddhas were about to be born. His entire being fell silent, but his hands began to move involuntarily. The voice of the emperor's remnant soul said, "I will first plant the seed of coronation for you. Try to consume the 7-flower godly herb." After saying that, the coronation phenomenon around him dissipated with a loud bang, but Longchen's body was still shrouded in divine light. The 2 stalks of 7-flowered divine herbs were separated at a speed visible to the naked eye. The countless impurities within them were directly removed. It was as if Longchen's hands possessed a tempering method. Longchen murmured, "Once I consume these 2 7-flowered godly herbs, I'll be able to attempt the coronation." The 2 7-flowered divine herbs were born from beast spirits, so they had the same effect as origin souls. Longchen's chest and abdomen bulged. His mouth and nose were like a giant whale sucking in water, swallowing the light of the divine medicine. On the other side, in the Ruoshui city, nearly 20 experts flew into the sky, and the leader was Shui Tianmu. Every single one of them was at the pinnacle of the emperor realm, and they all had crowned seas of reincarnation behind them. Shui Tianmu walked at the front, his face was filled with murderous intent. Under his lead, the 20 of them went around Zhang Lanua's stronghold, and their destination was the place where Longchen was going to crown Mo Manua. After a few days, Shui Tianmu brought the 20 of them here. Although Longchen and Mo Manua had already left, Shui Tianmu casually shot out a few rays of divine light, and streaks of golden light appeared in the sky. Shui Tianmu saw this and sneered, "Find Longchen and kill him, but leave his divine soul alive. I want to personally torture him until he begs me to kill him." Everyone nodded their heads, but they could not help but feel a chill down their spines. Shui Tianmu hated Longchen to the core. The streaks of golden light were like a compass, pointing to Longchen's location. Shui Tianmu and the rest quickly found where Longchen and Mo Manua were. "They are in this mountain range. If we succeed, I will have to thank Zhan Sun." "Ha ha." Shui Tianmu laughed out loud, as if he could already see Longchen falling into his hands. More than 20 people flew out, intending to enter the mountain range and rush to where Longchen was. The streaks of golden light were definitely some kind of tracking method, and they were left behind when Longchen was crowning Emmanuel. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Streaks of black flaming arrows pierced through the sky, and they sounded like the cries of black flaming divine birds. The 20 of them, including Shui Tianmu, stopped in their tracks. There were more than 20 arrows in the sky. Swoosh. The 20 of them were shocked, and they could feel the killing intent from the arrows. They quickly blocked the arrows. Even so, 2 great perfection emperors with only 1 sea of reincarnation were killed, and their bodies were pierced through in an instant. Black Bao celestial race. Shui Tianmu and the rest stared at the mountain peak in the distance. The mountain peak was 30,000 miles away from them, but the arrows arrived in an instant. The power of the arrows was extremely terrifying, causing them to be extremely shocked. Only the Black Bao celestial race could have such powerful arrows in the 9 treasures realm. How did this person suddenly become so powerful? Although the distance here gives him a unique advantage, isn't the power of his arrows too terrifying? An old man turned pale with fright. Shui Tianmu frowned and looked at Emmanuel. He was crowned successfully, and I can even feel a strong totem power. With the unique attacking method of the Black Bao celestial race, it is not difficult for him to have such combat power at the peak of the Emperor realm. Totem power? Everyone looked at each other. No one expected Emmanuel to have undergone such a drastic change in such a short period of time. Split up and rush in. Once we get close, this person is useless. His long-range attacks are far superior to his peers, and he is weak in close combat. Shui Tianmu saw Emmanuel's weakness immediately. More than 20 people looked at each other and rushed into the mountain range again. Within the array inscriptions, Longchen frowned and looked out through the array inscriptions. He said to himself coldly, "They found us so quickly, it seems like the people in the Warring State's stronghold have no intention of stopping them." The places Longchen searched were all behind the Warring State's stronghold, and Shui Tianmu's speed was enough to explain everything. The Emperor Master said solemnly, "You have the Primal Chaos Golden Code and the Dragon Palace as your foundation, and your divine body is extremely solid. Today, I will crown you with the undying Tao Law." As the Emperor Master finished his words, Longchen's hands moved faster and faster under his control. Streaks of Taoist rhymes gathered at his fingertips, and countless origin laws converged above his head. Although I have tested it on Emmanuel once, and I understand 90% of the divine soul of the Emperor realm, how much of the undying Tao Law you can carve will depend on your luck. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.